Yo, 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 this is your man, Yung Squalla. Before we start the show, I would like to give a brief thanks to all my viewers and my listeners. I appreciate you. Please keep tuning in with me. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, follow me on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram, which you can all find those in the description of each and every episode. Once again, thanks a lot and enjoy the show. Here we go.
Free socks.
Yo, 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 what's good, everybody? This is your man, Young Squalla, with Never Always Everything with Young Squalla podcast. And today I got a very, 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 very special guest today. And this person is, this person had a major influence on my life personally. So, the person I'm talking about happens to be my fourth and my fifth grade teacher. And this is Miss Cobble.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ms.Cobble. I am an educator. I've been in education for almost 24 years now. And as Brandon said, I'm sorry, y'all know him as Young Squalla, my bad.
It's all
Um,
good, it's all good.
sorry. Brandon said I was his fourth and fifth grade teacher. So I have taught in Prince George's County. I've taught fourth grade, fifth grade, sixth grade, and I am currently an instructional lead teacher in the subject of math. So I am looking forward to what Brandon is going to ask me. I want to put a disclaimer out there. I am not the expert on the subject matter he's asking about. I can only speak on my experiences.
That's all we need. You're not still at Patuxent, right?
I am no longer at Patuxent. I left Patuxent, I think, back in 2008, 2009. I've floated all over the county since then. I've taught
Okay.
middle school. And so now I'm back in the leadership position.
So what exactly is leadership math? What does that do?
So as an instructional lead teacher, for I specifically work with the intermediate groups, meaning third, fourth, fifth, and sixth grade.
Hmm.
So basically I'm supporting the students and the teacher. So I'm supporting the teacher's instruction to kind of make sure when I go in to a classroom that different things are happening, such as the instructional strategies are in place. Um, Different learning styles are being addressed, and specifically the math, like making sure the children are making the connections and then helping the teachers to make sure students are making connections and give them the teachers an opportunity to bounce ideas off of me or me to ask them questions to kind of dig deeper and kind of reflect on what just happened in this lesson. Did my students really get it? What approaches could I have used? What approaches worked? What didn't work? What things do I have? What am I lacking as a teacher that I need to go back and look at so that my students are actually understanding the math? Because one of the things we find not just in Prince George's County but across the country, math is a struggle for our students. And
Yeah.
so just trying to make sure we have practices in place, using manipulatives, using the most recent research to make sure that our students are getting the math and getting it better.
Yeah, I'm about to say math definitely was not my strong point in school either. So we're gonna get into the questions I got, and most of these questions are basically, but it definitely needs your opinion. It's your opinion, so there is no wrong answer.
Okay,
So
good to know.
as far as resources in the school goes, what is your take on the disparities, especially for certain schools in, like, I say, impoverished areas? How do you feel about that?
Um, I can tell you what I've seen, right? Because I'm not sure what's happening everywhere. There are over 100 elementary schools alone in Prince George's County. So,
Wow.
um, I will say, if I think back to my experience in different areas I've gone to school versus what I see now, I feel like the resources, a lot of schools have resources. So currently, the county has a setup where we have what's called community schools, right? And so there's a person who's specifically over community involvement and community resources. That is their person's job. So anything that a student or the school needs, that person reaches out, whether it's mental health, whether it's the child needs glasses, whether it's the child needs uniforms, the child is not, needs food. These people are responsible for that right now. So currently I work at a school where we have that program. And when I tell you the resources, like I'm going to tell you, I was shocked my first day of school because the principal was like, yeah, all the students are getting their school supplies. Like we order an individual box. And I'm like, wait a minute, hold on. Like, you mean to tell me y'all are not putting out a school list? No, the students were handed everything they needed.
That's what's up. That's what's
And I'm
up.
just like, what? Um, I've been at schools where there are similar instances where there's the resources out there for the students, but like I said, in the last couple of years, schools have actually been deemed as community schools, where someone that is their job. So in the past, in other schools I worked in, you have what's called Title I schools who get federal funding if 50% or more of your population is considered to be in the, if you will, poverty, or poverty, or receiving free and reduced lunch. Let's put it that way, right? And so there are all types of resources, but in all honesty, all the money that I see schools getting, I feel like no matter how much money you place in the school, you know what the biggest resource that's missing? It's not the money.
What is it?
It's people. We don't have the people,
Oh,
right? So
okay.
I can flood a school with thousands of dollars, thousands of programs. But here's what's happening. Either those programs are running, but people are getting burned out because it's them doing that job and plus what they're being paid to do and plus everything else, right? So that's one of the things. We don't have enough people. Or the position is available, but we can't fill it. Or we also need parents. I've been in schools where the parent population has been, I'm sorry, the parent involvement has been spectacular, sometimes a little overwhelming, if you will, but they're there. I can't be mad.
Right.
Right. And then there are places where parents are not involved because there are different things going on within that family or that community. Those parents have to work. They don't have those type of jobs where they can just take off, or they have the leave. And so it's like when they have to take off or put in that leave, they're missing pay and they have to take care of their families. So it's different things going on. But like I honestly, in the last couple of years, I've been in education. I've seen like currently a school I'm at right now, we have 3 different after school programs going on
Oh, wow.
from after school until almost 5 o'clock. And some of those kids are in school until 4:45 every
All
day,
day.
except Friday.
God
And
damn.
those parents, a lot of those parents are like, yes, I want them in this, I want them in that. But then you also have parents who don't take advantage of it. It's kind of like, oh, wait, I have to come pick them up. Yeah, no, never mind. But I'm talking about free programs. Children are being fed a snack. They're being offered the supplies they need. Like right now, the program we have, the kids are getting martial arts. They
Okay.
are learning theater. They are learning media, which is taps into what you're doing right now. Because all these kids are like, oh, I want to be a YouTuber. I want to, be IG famous and all this. And it's like now you're learning the tools that you would need to have a show such as yours or whatever you desire. I taught at a school where children were actually, that was a part of the curriculum. I taught at an art school, and that was an amazing experience.
That's what.
So the resources, I will say, are much better than what they were. Now, I'm not going to. At one point in time, I remember being a teacher early in my career and thinking like, why does this school have smart boards and I have this chalkboard, right? But that honestly has changed since then. Like it's almost like now you walk into a classroom, you automatically have a smart board. You have
That's
access to the technology.
and I don't even know what that is. What's that?
So a smart board is basically, think about it like a big old white chalkboard, except it's electronic. You can, like, right now, if I want to do a lesson right now, I can click on my whiteboard or my smart board and I can be on the internet. I can show something from
Oh,
Google.
wow.
I can write on it just like I would the chalkboard, but it's like basically a big old computer screen. You know, it's like a classroom iPad, if you will.
That's what's up.
And so from my computer, I project the lessons and I'm following along with the students and the students are following along with me. But when I first started teaching, that type of stuff wasn't there because I'm like, how come this school has all this technology? We have nothing. Or how is it that this school that I'm working at, none of the I'm going about to date myself. The overhead projectors are not working.
Yeah, I wanted to say that's what we
Um,
had.
that's what I'm saying. I love the overhead projector. But other schools, they would have the most up to date. So nowadays, the technology is way better in schools. I feel like that's a little more equal than it has been in the past. So I feel like the schools and the different school districts are making an effort to put resources out there to assist our children. Like I said, there's so many programs, and not just in the schools. Prince George's County, they do book bag drives in the beginning of the year. Every student is offered mental health services if needed for free.
That's
So
what's
we've
up.
seen a big shift in that since COVID, right? Because there's a lot going on with parents, with children. Nobody talked to our children. We had to talk to y'all, or your parents had to talk to you. You know, we had to figure out why are you having this meltdown or why are you responding in school this way. So now we actually have professionals in addition to the school counselor that come in and work with that mental piece with the students,
Mm,
teaching them the social emotional learning, how to respond, how to have boundaries. It's a lot different.
yeah, that the way you I'm about to say the way you just said there's a whole lot going on.
Yes.
I don't think nobody should be complaining after hearing all of
You
that.
know, there's always one, but I feel like the efforts are there. Am I going to say have we completely arrived? Absolutely not. Could we do better in some areas? Absolutely. But I feel like the efforts are there in comparison. And again, I'm speaking from my experience, so y'all don't come in these comments for me. I'm just telling y'all what I know
Yeah, don't
from
come
my
for
experience.
So I heard you mention that you need more community engagement, more people. So what what would you want to see that look like?
Ooh, that's a good question. What would I want to see that look like? I would start with the home, right? Because we have, like I said, I've come across amazing parents, such as shout out to Brenda Smith. Listen, if I call home, there were corrections, you
Yeah,
know?
you call home a little too much.
Nah, yeah, he was doing too much. Y'all, he was doing too much. We're gonna talk about him later and why he got phone calls home. But look at him now. Look at him. Look at them
That's
phone
funny.
calls. Look what they did for your life.
Yeah.
No, but there are some parents who I feel like sometimes have had bad experiences in school. And so they feel a certain type of way. And so that teacher parent relationship could be better. And also on a teacher, now I'm not going to tell you teachers are perfect. It's just, I don't know what the remedy is. I could just tell you certain things I've heard parents say or I've seen them do. Like, I know parents want me to call home for every single thing. And it's like, yeah, I don't have time to do that. Some things I have to address on the spot. And then, if it's serious enough or repetitive enough, then I'm going to make the phone call and have a conversation. So I think teachers have to have a balance with making sure we understand what do I need to communicate with this parent and how often do I need to communicate. And then getting parents to also see it's not just your baby in that room. It's at least 25, 30 others. And so in the moment, like as a teacher, you're making so many decisions within a matter of seconds and multitasking. I can't pick up that phone because guess what happens when I pick up that phone? I've lost the attention of the other 25, 30.
Hmm.
I've got to keep them under control. And then it becomes, oh, you embarrassed my child because now I'm on the phone in the classroom with your child, right? So it's it's hard. So I think if parents and teachers can kind of balance and figure out what's the best communication, what makes the most sense, what is actually something that a goal we can set to communicate that can happen, right? And so even now I know with the school system we've kind of gotten away from phone calls, and I probably shouldn't say gotten away with, but in addition to phone calls, teachers can send messages. We have like Class Dojo, right? So it's basically, think about it like your school community Facebook, if you will.
That's not the same as School Max.
No, School Max, that's coming from, and that's getting ready to be faded out. But School Max, you could communicate to the parents specifically about, the child's grades and, what's going on. But with Class Dojo, a lot of teachers use that. Most school systems have gone to that across the school board. I mean, across the school. It's basically like, so if I'm having a special program, like the band is performing tonight, I can put that in Class Dojo.
Okay.
If a child is doing something and I need the parent to address it, I can send the message directly to that parent. So it could be private or it can be public for the parents to see. And we have one for the actual school and one for individual classrooms.
Yeah, I'm glad.
And so I feel like now parents are more informed, but they always say, well, I didn't know. You didn't tell me. It's like, did you check Class Dojo? Or let's talk about these phones. Okay.
Yeah, let's talk about the phones.
Let's talk about these phones. When I call, it's the wrong number.
Uh-oh.
So it's like that too. I know sometimes, parents are like, listen, I don't want to talk to you. Like, you deal with it. And that's not fair, because during COVID, you didn't have me.
Yeah,
The pandemic, you didn't have me. So let's work together. Don't say to me, oh, when they're with you, you figure it out, you deal with it. No, we need to figure it out together, because whatever I'm saying or doing should mirror what you're saying or doing, or you let me know what you're saying or doing so I can mirror it. So the child understands you're not playing us.
Right.
It's like parents won't update phone numbers. They'll change their phone number and won't tell us, or we're trying to call around. And sometimes it's not just to call and say, hey, your child's being bad. Sometimes I want to say something great about your child. Sometimes it could be an emergency, or sometimes I'm just trying to get simple information. So I think we need to be better about updating these phones and making sure teachers and parents always have a way to communicate. It's just so many ways to communicate. And I just don't understand how people nowadays were like, well, I didn't know. It's like, wait, it was on the PG County school page. It was on the school web page. It was on Class Dojo. I sent it home in print.
Uh-oh.
And I did a robocall.
They ain't want to know.
Right. And the thing is, nowadays you can see when they didn't answer the call.
Mm-hmm.
If I roll out a message for everyone to get, I can see if you picked up the phone or not. So it's communication. So I guess getting back to the question, communication would be one of the things that we would start with, right? And I think the community is doing a much better job. Like I've seen community resources reach out to schools and say, how do I get involved? How do I help? What can I do?
That's good. All right. So we was talking about the what's it called? What's it called? Dojo?
Yes, Class Dojo.
Dojo.
Class Dojo, you have Remind 101. You have everything.
Yeah, I'm just glad I ain't have too much of that when I was in class.
Oh, you got listen.
It's doing them in
Parents answered their phone in that day.
She said they did what?
Your parents answered the phone. They saw the school and they actually answered. They see the school now. They're like, yeah, no, thank you. What did they do now? Like, what does this person want?
Yes. I don't have no kids, but I know what you're talking about. But so you was talking about COVID. I know that was crazy for y'all.
That was that was a time. That opened my eyes to a lot about education during that time. It showed me so much.
So what was like? How did it? I know it impacted the students. But how did it impact the teachers?
Okay, so I'm gonna speak from my experience and just the things that I've talked to my colleagues about and things. I know it was very hard for me because I mean, I think you remember I stayed late, you know, and that's not to say I stayed late. I was such a great teacher, but at that time I was, you know, just starting to teach. About around the time I had you, I hadn't been teaching that long, so I was trying to, you know, get it. And unfortunately, that kind of like that did I continued to do that for years, and that wears you out, right? So just think about being that teacher who already is putting in your time at school, and then you already pre-COVID, you were coming home and continuing to prep for your students, right? Now there's no separation. I'm at home and I'm at work, and I can't relax. I can't separate the two. It was challenging because parents also didn't know what to do with it. And so a lot of parents got to the point where they felt like they should be able to access the teacher 24/7. It's just like, wait, pause. You know, or why didn't you grade this or why didn't you grade that? And the thing is, I needed people to understand COVID is not just happening, or the pandemic is not just happening to you, it's happening to all of us. So some of us are at home managing families, managing work, managing our mental, managing our physical, just like you are. So some teachers were at home. Like I had a colleague, she had a son, and they would be at the table. She's on the Zoom with our set of students teaching, reading. Her son is at the table too, you know, or you know, in another room. So
Yeah.
I think a lot of people just. I want to assume that people just weren't being selfish. I don't want to put that out there. I don't want to assume that. I just want to say that it was such a shift for all of us. It was trying to figure out, what do I do? What does this look like? It was hard because you had some teachers walked out the building that week not know, like people like me who don't watch TV that much. So people were like, "Oh, we're about to get out of school," and I'm like, "Yes," because I'm tired. Like I was ready to take a couple of days off because I was like, "I'm tired. I'm worn out. I need a break." I wasn't paying attention, unfortunately, to what was going on until I did pay attention to what was going on. So some of us walked out of buildings without computers,
Oh,
without teachers'
man.
manuals, you know, thinking, "Oh, we'll be back in a couple of days." Like none of us, not just teachers, but parents, students, we didn't
Right.
understand
Yeah.
the magnitude of what was about to happen.
Right.
So that's one thing. And you're at home like, okay, well, let me go through what I have. And like, if you weren't creative, baby, you became creative. Because it's just like, how do I still address these students and get them what they need? Um, and then parents are panicking because some will tell you, yeah, that's why we, you know, that's why we appreciative of you because this is what you do. This is not what I do. And so they're panicking because they're like, well, I don't know how to help my child. Then you had people online bashing teachers like, why y'all getting paid? Like, we're at home teaching. It's like, wait, what?
They
What is
trying to get
happening?
paid.
They people were literally putting online that teachers shouldn't be paid because we weren't doing anything, but we were just sitting at home. And I'm just like, all
That's
right.
crazy.
It was just that, and then just hearing all the backlash of what teachers are or are not doing. That was that
Yeah.
was hurtful to watch because it's just like, wow. You know, you had people like, well, I'm doing a better job. And I'm like, yeah, but we came back to school and I'm not seeing the effects
Yeah.
of. So it was a struggle for all of us. And I think a lot of people just did not take that into consideration. You had students who were at home. It's like, how do you teach or address a student? Like I had students whose parents died in that moment and during that pandemic. And this was like this that was I had a student, you know, he and the parent and I, we were already in communication pre-COVID. And then during COVID, you know, the parent got sick and this was his only parent. His other parent had already passed away previous.
Sheesh.
So how do I get this child to learn? Meanwhile, your dad has passed away from this disease that we, or this virus we don't understand.
Right.
And then I also had students. I'm trying to impart Common Core, and this child is worried about. Well, my mom is a nurse. My dad is a paramedic. Like my dad's a paramedic. My mom's a doctor, or what have you. Or they're in fields that require them to be in front of people where they were more susceptible to COVID, right? And so you have a child worrying about that, and that parent worrying about, when I come home, I can't even interact with my child because I have to make sure I've taken all the precautions to make sure I've, gotten rid of the residue of my day. So that was hard. Then you had children who already were lacking pre-COVID academically. And so not being monitored. Parents were like, go in your room and cut your Chromebook on. And it's like, yeah, mom, dad, they're going in and they're cutting their Chromebook on, but they're not online. They're not in my class. Or, just like you and I can see you, you can see me right now. Like I had kids that I don't know what they look like because their screen was black the whole time.
Yeah,
now, because I have a photographic memory, if they say their name, I can memorize and like I can visually see it on my list. But I had a student a couple of years ago. I was at my nephew's birthday party, and someone was talking to me, asking me different questions and what I did. And the little girl just kept getting excited. She's like, I went to that school. My sixth grade teacher. And I'm looking at her like, well, who are you? And I had to say your name, baby. And she said her name. And then I made the connection to what my list looked like at the time. And I said, yeah, you wore a black screen the whole time. Yeah, I don't know what you look, but the crazy thing is these children can recognize me on my voice. They're like, you were my teacher. And I'm like, oh, was I? Yeah, what did your screen look like? Like, because I don't know.
That's crazy.
And so the thing became forcing children to cut screens on, but then you had to be mindful of that. I know you saw the stories.
Oh,
like,
man.
Like in the background, just, hello, ma'am, sir, we're here.
Yeah.
You've had kids, I've had kids online, I'm trying to teach, and they being full-fledged cussed out. And I've got to mute or disconnect them because I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
So it was, and then, or you've had them, parents had to be creative. Like they had 2 and 3 kids in the household, everybody's on Zoom. So they had to create dividers, send them in separate rooms. You could hear, the 2-year-old in the background screaming and crying. Like it was a time to teach.
I know it was distracting for everybody.
Everyone, because I'm like, there have been times I've been yelling at the camera, ma'am, please, hello. And I'm like, mute, please mute.
Oh, man.
Sometimes it was like I was learning Zoom or Google Meet, whatever we were using at that time. Eventually we all went to Zoom, but even me learning to navigate that stuff and like not being able to mute fast enough, and now everybody's heard you get cussed out, or everyone has seen somebody flash across the screen, or you had parents that would jump in and just start talking to you. Yeah, because my son said, and I'm like, whoa, hi, I'm teaching. Ma'am, can I talk to you after?
I didn't even think about all of that.
Listen, when we first started, we had children hacking into other people's Zooms that didn't even go to the school. So having to figure out how to get the children in safely and keep other people out.
Right.
It was a lot. And if you have some teachers who will tell you, hey, I'm not technology savvy, you had to get it. And you had to get it real soon. So it was such a time, academically, mentally, emotionally, socially. A lot of our students were not interacting with one another. And we saw the effects of that once they came back to the building. They were even more sensitive or not knowing how to problem solve. Everything was a bicker. It was like, whoa, what is happening? What happened? They came back with no pencils. I'm like, yeah, we're going to use a pencil. We're going to use a pencil.
Mm-hmm. Did y'all lose a lot of teachers with COVID?
Some teachers passed away from COVID. Let's start there. You had teachers who literally passed away during that time. You had teachers who lost loved ones. So some of them, did not return because of that. Some did not return because of the stress. Like I said, it opened a lot of teachers' eyes of how important we were or were not to the population we were serving, right? And so some people made a decision, they're like, yeah, or some people did not come back honestly out of fear. You know, if I was a person who had a medical condition that maybe I didn't share with everyone, but my fear may have been, I'm coming back and I'm not sure about this thing. So some people did not come back for that reason. Some people didn't come back because they had family members who they felt they would be putting in jeopardy by coming back. So you had different reasons why people decided to leave the profession, but it definitely, we always say that teaching is is something else. And I tell people, if the Lord did not call you, you might want to think it all the way through, because every day it's something, and you have to every day remember your why. Because if you don't, you're out of there. And sometimes you know your why, but you've had enough. It's time to move on. And you have to recognize that too. Because some people, some of my colleagues, sometimes I'm like, yeah, you might want to rethink this, because this is not helpful for you or for children. And so you have to realize, when do I reach that point? And I don't judge anybody who decides to go. Everybody has their moment, their time where they say, okay, this part of my life, this season is over. It's time to move on. And that's okay. What's not okay is not realizing it and staying and hurting yourself and children. That's not okay.
Yeah.
So we definitely lost a lot of people. We lost administrators, we lost teachers, um, students. I will say the positive side. I had students that were actually thriving during
Okay.
COVID, because for some reason, like that was that student that never came to school or didn't participate, and they were
Uh,
talking to them. They say, you know what, Ms. Cobble, Miss such and such, Mr. such and such, I did so much better because I was able to focus. I didn't have certain distractions, or personality wise, they didn't have to deal with people. They were the type of students that wanted to withdraw and not always, like, they're not motivated by people. People don't energize them. So some of those students did better, that you've never seen an A or B on their report card
until that time.
and you're like, wow, like, what's different? So you had some students who actually thrived because they didn't have the distraction. Um, it piqued more of an interest, or it was on a platform that kept their attention. And then you had some students who just plummeted because they needed that structure, that routine. They needed someone every day saying, hey, take out your journal, write down your homework. This is due, and expecting it to get it in their hand the next day, not the electronic. Because, baby, if I heard I can't get in one more time, or something wrong with the computer, or I submitted it and it's like, no, you did not. It is Google. Google.
Nah, I definitely understand about that. That would have been me.
And I would have made that phone call and it wouldn't have been you for long.
I don't know, the computer glitching, all the
Yeah,
I don't
listen, I had a student, he convinced his mother for 3 quarters that his computer was glitching.
for 3 quarters. Woo, 3 quarters, you froze again. Yeah, so I know. So my friend has a daughter, and she was doing the whole Zoom thing, and we would be in there with her. Like it's a whole house full of people, and we wasn't even thinking about her on the tablet until we heard somebody say, "Can y'all quiet down in the background?" And I was like, "Oh snap, she is in school." We wasn't even thinking about
And that's real. Like, a lot of households were not making that separation. Like, I remember one of my students, he was at the kitchen table doing and he was one of my students who always participated. Mom just came in and started washing dishes, banging pots. And I'm like, hey, can you mute? Like, I'm looking at him like, can you mute? And he was in the middle of answering a question.
Dang. Yeah, so I apologize to the audience. This is Zoom having crazy uh technical difficulties. So yeah, and this Ms. Cobble just said this is what happened was doing class while the kids was trying to learn. Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy. So I'm gonna skip off of COVID and go to the next one. So I know y'all, you as an educator, you have seen biases in the classroom, and kids experience bias, teachers experience bias. How do you think, as a community, we can make that better when it comes to the students and, most importantly, Black students?
Well, you got to start by acknowledging that you have the biases, right? So if you just think you're okay and your thought process is not flawed, that's not going to work. You're not going to be open-minded and receptive to different things, different cultures, different experiences. So you have to start there. And one of the things that our county requires our teachers and staff to do every year is we have to go through a series of video professional developments, if you will, where it addresses different things that are going on, like, you know, your cultural responsive teaching, implicit biases, things like that, just to kind of remind us of not just what it is, but what does that look like and how do we address it in the classroom. And for me, having been at different schools, um, I've had similar experiences to a lot of my students, so I could relate. But I will say that I am currently working at a school that has actually a heavier Hispanic population.
Uh,
And that's not to say that I've never worked with Hispanic students, but not at this magnitude, right? So it's not now. I have to make sure I am intentional about not just being biased, having biases of my own, but I have to think, I have to think through, okay, what do I know or not know or assume about this population that I've never worked with on this magnitude.
right.
And the crazy thing is, because our population is so large, I've never worked with students that were from so many different Hispanic countries. Like I'm used to, I have a Mexican student here or El Salvadorian student here, and it's like, okay, cool, it's these two, right?
Right.
You don't think on a larger scale, but you think about what's in front of you. Now I have children from Honduras, Guatemala, Mexico. It's like, and we have days where they represent their Hispanic heritage, just like just like we represent our Black history, right?
Right.
And I love seeing these students in their different gear. And I'm going, oh, you're from Honduras? Okay, cool. Tell me about that. That is so eye-opening because
Yeah.
you just don't think about it. I mean, like, being Hispanic doesn't just mean you're from this one place, right? It's multiple places. And then so just to kind of be working with that population in addition to my own population and even educating them about each other, not just the Hispanic students, because the Hispanic students have biases against each other's countries and each other.
Oh, man,
And
I
we have to
didn't know
break
that.
down that wall. And so then we also have our African American population who are also interacting. And so we have to educate them, just like we have to educate the Hispanic students on not just their own other countries that represent them, and then African Americans. But
Okay.
then we have a sprinkle of African students. This is why I kind of like really like this school. I feel like it's just making me better
What
because
school you at right now?
you're making me say schools. I'm in Hyattsville. I'm gonna say that. Y'all Google me if y'all trying to figure that out. I am not. No, y'all Google me because I'm not saying names.
All
I'm
right.
just gonna say I'm at a school. We have a sprinkle of everything. Um, we have African students, and again, that is eye opening because most times that I've had African students, they have been from Nigeria.
Uh-huh.
Right now, I have students from Cameroon.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I'm like,
Cameroon.
okay, Sierra Leone. So I'm getting a little bit of everything. And I just love sometimes, like, even at lunchtime, sometimes I'm like, okay, what do you have for lunch? Okay, talk to me about that. What's that? What does that taste like?
Right.
Um, I've had students and I forget the name of the drink. One of my Nigerian students was talking about a drink. It was like a cold day, and she was like, I can't wait till I get home and drink some whatever she said. And I was like, well, what's that? And then she was trying to explain. I said, okay, can you think of something that's served in America or that we eat here that is similar to it so I get a better understanding? And so she broke it down for me. And I was like, oh,
What was the
okay.
drink?
We said what?
What was it? What she
It was
compared it to?
something, it sounded like a porridge, something, it was drinkable or you could like eat it.
Okay.
Right. And I was like, okay. And so she was just saying how it was good, hot. I remember coming across one of my Mexican students and they introduced me to Mexican hot chocolate. And I was like, that's a thing. So it's like it's hot chocolate, but it has a spicy kick to it.
I knew you was gonna say it was spicy. I knew
Yeah. And
it.
so I have students now, they're eating they bring pupusas for lunch. And I'm like, okay, so what's in that? They're trying to get me every day, like, Ms.Cobble, did you go to the international store? I'm like, listen, that's not on the way home. I did not. Like, y'all bring it to me. They're really into the tahine.
Yeah.
And so they always tell me about tahine with the chamoy on their apples. And they're like, you have to try it. So I'm like, okay, so I have not done it yet, but I'm going to do it.
I'm gonna
But
tell
just to
you,
have
I,
experiences like that.
I done
You said
tried
what?
that. I done tried that tahine.
I love the tahine, but I've never
Um,
had it with the chamoy on apples.
yeah, I ain't messing with that. They put. I used to work at an ice cream factory, and they put they had a mango tahine ice cream bar. I
Oh,
wa- I wasn't feeling it.
you wasn't feeling it? Yeah, it's an acquired taste, but I actually use the tahine as one of my spices now. I like it.
Okay.
Um, I find myself eating more cilantro now. So I'm open to all of that, and that's actually one of the ways I a lot of times kind of dive into the cultures and kind of like help myself understand if a bias already exists in me. Like, how do I understand it and break through that by having conversations
Hmm.
with the students and with the parents, and sometimes hearing them, and I have to go, yeah, no, that's not that. No,
So,
we don't do that.
right.
Like,
Yeah, I get you.
yeah, like,
So
so
how important? Oh my bad. Go ahead. Go ahead.
go ahead, no, go ahead.
I was gonna say how important is culturally responsive teaching? Like when you have different backgrounds and different, you hear a lot of teachers, especially when I was in school, it was all about Black history and all of that, and now you have so much more different cultures. And how has it changed?
Oh my gosh, tremendously. Like, did you know this month was Arab American Heritage Month?
Oh man, I had no clue.
You know what I'm saying? Like, that's new to me. And I know that Arabs exist, but you're not thinking about that, right?
It
So like you
makes
said,
sense though. I heard some on the news. There's something going on at somebody college where the Arabs are protesting. So it makes sense for it to be around this time.
see, and it's like things like that. It's just like, and when I saw it, I'm like, oh wow. And to see that our county is making us acknowledge it. So we get it, like in our through our news feeds or emails, like, hey, and it just makes you, pay attention
Right.
to this month, pay attention to this culture, address, this culture. And so I think culturally responsive teaching is important because we've always said America is this big melting pot of people, right? And one of the ways to see that melting pot a lot of times is in school, where you get those children because when they get here, they're required to come to school, whether they know English or not, they're required to come here. So it's like, how do I validate that student, make them feel inclusive? How do I tap into their academics? Because listen, at the school I'm at now, on a regular basis, students are walking in no English.
So did you have to pick up a second language?
Well, I took Spanish in high school. Unfortunately, I did not force myself to become fluent in it, but I have an ear for it in the sense that if I tell them to slow down sometimes, I can pick up on words and I can figure out what it is they're talking about.
Right.
Now, responding is the problem because I'm not fluent. So
Okay.
sometimes I do have, a little toolkit of phrases that I know and I understand and what the response may be. But sometimes I have to pull out Google Translate, and the parent and I go back and forth. We also have a department in Prince George's County where if someone comes in and does not speak English, we can call an interpreter and have the interpreter right there, whether it's on the phone, put them on speaker. The parent says what they need to say. The interpreter comes back and translates it for us. We say what we need to say, and vice versa. So the county realizes our population is changing tremendously, and so those things are in place to help us with that. Um, it's just, but you definitely have to be more aware nowadays as a teacher. I remember talking to my students. They were upset with a Hispanic speaking. Well, I'm sorry. Yeah, she's young. It was a Hispanic young lady, but she does not speak English, right?
Uh-huh.
And so they were like, she keeps staring at me, and I said, "Hi, she doesn't understand English. So how do you know she's not staring to get to understand?" And listen, I
Right.
said there are words in English and Spanish that sound the same. So she may be trying to pick up on those words that she does understand. It's not a I'm gritting on you, or you know, calm
Right.
down. And so just having to have that conversation with them and getting them to look at that differently. Or sometimes, hey, you might be acting foolish. That's why she's staring at you. But it's not always she's mean mugging you, as they say. She's trying to understand her environment
Nah, that's it. Yeah.
and listen for what she does understand. So it's being culturally responsive as a teacher is just, it's so important because we have so many cultures, we have so many lifestyles that we have to address and make students feel valued by tapping into their culture, like anything that's happening in our actual in their actual culture or what's popular. We've got to make a connection, and that's teaching period. Being able to find a way to get students to connect.
Right.
I know sometimes when I'm doing math and we're talking about, like, let's say area or perimeter, I know a lot of my Hispanic students, their parents, usually it's their dads, have a landscaping business, right? So if I go from the approach and I'm like, yeah, because my dad and blah, blah, and I'm like, yes. And so now
Yep.
I've made the connection.
Yep.
Or when we're talking about how a lot of them visit their own country around certain times because they have harvesting time. So a lot of their parents will go back and be a part of that. And so when I'm talking about how to exchange money, when I'm doing conversions or ratios, I have to bring that in. Like, you know how when you go to your country, like, what's the name of the money in your country? Okay. And then talking about what the conversion is here versus there. Like having that conversation. And now I've connected it for them. Or just simply going to the store. Like my students, like they love to go. When I had middle school, they want to go to the vending machine, making that connection to ratios. And like, is it better for you to go to Sam's and just buy a big box and bring one every week? Or do you want to keep spending your money in the vending machine and having them making that mathematical connection?
Uh-huh. Oh yeah. That's yeah. I need to take that class again. I definitely need to take that class again. So you mentioned lifestyle. Are you froze again? Yep. I apologize to my audience for this episode. I don't know what's going on with the Zoom. It's just going crazy today, but we about to get it. There's some good information here. I'm about to edit this video like crazy. So you mentioned lifestyle. So
Mm-hmm.
this next question is a little controversial.
Oh, Lord. Okay. I'm going
So
to answer very carefully.
yeah, please. So over the years, we have different lifestyles. So how do you as a teacher deal with the LGBTQ community?
I treat them as a person, point blank. So now I will say that in the elementary sector, I don't want to say I don't want to be mindful, but it's not something that comes up regularly
Okay.
um, with the students. Now, it may be in the household, and we have to address it from that approach. Um, but for the most part, um, my first encounter was when I started teaching middle school. And so, just first of all, that goes back to being cultural responsive teaching, just forming a relationship, like outside of what you do, what you prefer, not my business. My
Right.
business is to make sure you feel validated, make sure you feel inclusive. And I don't know if you remember how I feel about folks bothering folk. That bully word, yeah, my students know I plays no games with that.
Okay.
I do not tolerate it. You could be my biggest pain, but I'm not going to allow anyone to make you feel a certain way. And I have to break that down for students on a regular basis to get them to understand. You don't know what people endure at home.
Right.
You don't know what they're fighting through. And so your jokes or what you think is a joke or you just being mean, it's not going to be tolerated. It's not okay with me. So it's, I address that. But my first experience, like I was saying, it was in middle school. And I guess it was culture shock for me because I had never dealt with it from the student perspective. And I was just like, okay, wait a minute. But what I loved about my group of students, it's like, yeah, that's such and such.
Uh-huh.
And it's like, okay, they understood. We treat this person as a person, not based on what it is they identify as. It didn't become a big thing, but I know that even as a teacher, I still needed to understand that group because we started forming actual committees. So we would get PDs on how to address the whole pronoun thing. Like I didn't know. I'm like, wait a minute. Okay, so we identify using pronouns. Like I never dealt with that.
Right.
And then someone one day was like, so how do you identify? Are you cisgender? And I'm like, am I what? And I'm like, this is new. This is a new word. Like, so now there are labels created for me that I didn't even know existed. So I'm also trying to understand labels for them, for this particular community. And I used to love having conversations. Like we had a group of students in middle school who they broke down the different flags for me. Like, I mean, this is sitting outside.
Okay.
Like one day we had a free day and they were just all in a group and I heard them talking. And I'm like, okay, so what's what? And they're like, yeah, this flag means this and this means that. And they spoke about it so maturely. And I was just like, okay, wow, y'all are educating me on things. But I did have a student in my class who identified as, I've had students who've identified as he. And the beginning of the year, it was always awkward because it's like you're looking at your roster, and your roster also gives your birth date and it tells you what their birth gender is. And so you're calling names, and a lot of them would pull you to the side or send you an email and say, hi, I'm such and such, but I would like to be called this and I identify as this. And I'm like, okay. And it gets to be, like you said, controversial and a touchy subject because there's certain things I cannot have a conversation with home about if the child has said to me, I don't want you to. And I feel, as an educator, I'm not a mother yet, but I have nieces and nephews, I have godchildren. And I know how I would feel if someone was holding information about my child that I was not aware of. And I kind of get it. It goes different ways because sometimes home is not ready for the conversation.
Right.
Home has a strong belief against what that child is identifying as. Or the child doesn't have the language or the freedom to be able to express it just yet. So that makes you very torn because it's like you kind of think like a parent, but you also have to think about safety, and then that child already fighting with. So it's like it's so much, and I'm always learning, and my learning comes from my different experiences with my different students. Like some of the students I have come across, initially I would be in conversation with the parent, and you can constantly hear the parent calling the child by the assigned birth gender.
Right.
And then the conversation will become, sometimes a lot of these kids, they would go to their parents eventually and say, this is what I like to be called. This is the pronoun I like to use. And so you could hear the parents struggling with it. And then eventually they would kind of get on the same page, sort of, but kind of still have boundaries. Like, you can do this, you can be this, you can identify this, but this is as how far it goes. So it's very hard. And then you have to think about, even as a teacher, I think even on the parental side, how some parents are not ready for their children to have that conversation or be exposed to that. And so it's like, how do you respect them without overstepping your boundaries, but still keeping your students informed. So listen, if they bring it up, or if I see it in that moment, it's a teachable moment, I address it.
Right.
Or if they bring it up, we're going to talk about it so that you understand that you don't go around what is it? What's the word I'm looking for? I can't even think of it tired.
Mislabeling
Misjudging
people.
people,
Yeah. Yeah.
misjudging people, or and even getting a lot of my students who identified as I can't get the letters. Okay,
LGBTQ.
LGBTQ, right? Y'all forgive me, but it's a lot of letters, and I deal with acronyms all day long. It's okay. So with students who identify, sometimes I've had conversations with them, with sometimes they felt like people were being disrespectful by not identifying, by not using the pronoun they've asked,
Right.
right? And so I have to always have the approach with them as well. Like sometimes people are being disrespectful because they don't want to accept it, and that's not a you problem, that's a them problem. You can continue to inform them, but also having a conversation. I want you to be mindful of sometimes, is that really that person's intent? Like I'm looking at your screen behind you, I see the color red. And if I say red, like, okay, I'm gonna tell you prime example. Okay, so I see if I called your color, I say that's red, right?
Uh-huh.
But as I got older and started hearing about the Divine Nine, our Greek fraternities and sororities, right?
Right.
So the Kappas are going to say crimson.
Okay.
But if all my life I've called that red, it's an adjustment, right? And so if
Right.
I'm with a Kappa or a Delta and I go, oh, that's red and white, and they're like, no, that's crimson. And the Kappa's going to say crimson and cream, right? And so I'm not being disrespectful. I'm addressing it based off of my experience and what I've learned so far. And
Right.
so now I'm trying to address. So now when I see a Kappa, I'm not going, oh, red and off white. I'm saying, oh, wait, it's crimson and cream. So it's kind of like the same thing I have to tell us. So sometimes it's that approach that people are giving you. Sometimes they're not being purposely disrespectful, or not compliant with what you're asking. Sometimes it's a mind change. It's a shift in your mind, a shift of their experiences, a new experience.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of like just think of people, what people's intent is.
Right. So is there no curriculum dedicated to like educating people on LGBTQ or stuff like the issue, like just like they have Black History? Is there no like
Mhm.
curriculum dedicated to that?
Okay, so because I work on the elementary sector, in that area, you may touch on something like in the area of health or family life development, right?
Right.
High school, there's probably along the history classes or some class, involving like politics, like if you're in like a civics type situation. There's probably something that addresses it. But whatever we do, it's not, we don't push people to live a certain way and we don't speak against it. We just give the facts.
Okay.
This exists, and because this exists, these are the things that you need to be mindful of. These are characteristics. Here's places where you can get information. That's the same thing with like when we teach family life development. We're not pushing children to do anything. We're not saying go out here and do this because this is available. We're saying, hey, this is out here. This is what this means. And most times, I know with the elementary, the parents had to sign off on that class. I don't know if you remember. I think I taught in the fifth grade with you all, but I
Yeah.
know I remember fifth and sixth grade, we definitely did it. But I remember parents having to sign off on things like that, saying it's okay to have that discussion.
Oh, even when I was in school, they had to sign off on it too.
Yeah, you had to sign off on
Oh,
it.
true. I didn't even know.
Yeah. Then when you get to high school, I remember from my high school's perspective, a health class we took addressed everything.
Right.
So that was already like a part of your curriculum. You didn't need a sign off, but because I guess with fifth and sixth grade, I don't want to say it's too early because nowadays children out here misinforming other children. They watching all this social media, and it's like some parents are like, hey, I'm not ready to have that discussion. It's like, but baby, you better because somebody else is informing them.
And
I mean, these
it's
kids say wild stuff.
yeah, it's kid parents that's at sixth grade age.
That part,
Yeah, so it's definitely
that part. So yeah, there. I think it comes up within the curriculum. I think a high school teacher or a high school teacher or maybe a middle school health teacher could probably speak to this a little bit better. but just from what I understand, I just remember that if it's a part of the curriculum or it's not a, we don't push for something and we don't speak against something. Our job is to just supply the information, and if the subject matter comes up, we address it as best as we can. And if we cannot address it, we are to say, I'm not aware of that, or I'm not sure. Let me see if I can get you information on that, or here's a source you can go to. Like, we're not telling kids to do stuff.
Gotcha.
And so, like I said, there's pushback sometimes with parents because they're like, yeah, I don't want my child exposed to whether we're talking about a lifestyle or we're talking about being sexually active. You have parents that are like, yeah, I don't want you talking to my child about that.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah, it's a touchy subject, whether it's just sex or whatever preference they doing, because there's some households that have two fathers, some households have two mothers. Somehow it's all over the place right now. So you don't want to offend nobody, but at the same time, you don't want to hold back from teaching a certain thing either.
Correct.
Did
Because you want
y'all?
to inform.
Yeah, exactly. So did y'all educators, y'all haven't received any like additional training in reference to that?
Same thing. We do the professional development that we're required to do at the beginning of every school year, and it's available to us all school year long, where we talk about how do we address children who may come to us and say, hey, I'm feeling this way. I think I identify as this. Um, we get training on bullying. We get it all. Um, and we also within our school, so you get the whole system gets it, and then within your school committees are formed, and there's an identified point person who may go to different trainings throughout the year, and we have staff meetings. And so sometimes at staff meetings or on our professional developmental days, those point persons come back to open our eyes about whatever the subject matter is. Like, I think the last one we did, I remember in a staff meeting, we addressed brown boys.
Okay.
Right. And that was the subject matter. We literally called it, it was something to the effect of brown boys. Like, how are we addressing in the classroom? How are we treating them? Because, we look at the statistics of how boys are more likely to be placed in SPED, like not doing well in school, the behavior. So how are you addressing them? How are you encouraging them? How are you reaching them through instruction?
Right.
So that was a topic. Culture was a topic. All types of things.
Got you. So you just mentioned special ed. I was just about to ask you about special ed because I see something, my personal opinion, and I know a lot of people I've talked to disagree with me a lot. So I just
Okay,
want to see. So a lot of people that I've seen and people that I even know personally that have been in special ed, they. So I'm trying to figure out what exactly does a school consider special education? Like, what makes you say that child needs to go into special ed? There's some kids who are in special ed who not really special ed. Like, that's my opinion. That's not nothing that I can say is a fact, but I know people that they say they special ed, but they not special ed.
So what is it about those people that you think is not like? Tell me something you identify with that you're like, that's not special ed.
So like, I got a friend, and me and him the same age. I think he might have been in your class. I ain't gonna say his name, but
Okay.
he went from Patuxent, and when we got to middle school, he was in special ed. But in Patuxent, he was not in special ed.
Mm.
And then he kept saying, "Yeah, what's the word?" He said he autistic. He said
Okay.
he autistic, and he said he reads words backwards and stuff like that. But,
Dyslexia?
so that's not this autistic and dyslexic is not the same, or is that the same?
No, they're two different things.
And see, he say autistic, and then he say that he read word backwards, and that's something else. See,
So those are two different things.
so
Because autism is a spectrum, right? So you can fit in different places,
right,
and it looks different. And back when you were in Patuxent, we weren't really using the word autism a lot. You really did not hear or see that a lot. I knew the word because when I was in school, I took courses that were specific to SPED, and I also was a psychology major. So I'd heard the word, but it's not something that you saw us using to identify students a lot at that time. It was not something that medically was talked about, because now even medically they're still trying to understand it.
Right.
Because at one point medically you would say this child is autistic and they fit here, but now it's a spectrum,
Right.
right? I've had autistic students who were identified as having autism, but also tag students. If you remember that term, talented and gifted.
Right.
Extremely bright, but also fell under the spectrum of autism. And so they had some social developments that look different from ours.
Okay.
But when it came to academics, they would blow you out the water.
Okay. That makes
Right.
sense.
But then I also had students who fell under the spectrum of autism who were nonverbal, who didn't even communicate.
Right.
Who could not communicate.
That's my when I think of autism, I think of somebody who is like you can obviously see that they are autistic. So
It's not always obvious. And again, like I said, there's research still being done for us to understand it. But I'll just say, in my experience, one of the things that I can see that has been consistent with all of my autistic students is the social piece. You can see they have a social, I'm going to use the word awkward, and I hope I'm not being offensive, but socially, like, they don't get things like social cues. Like, if I'm staring at you, like, and I want you to be quiet, they're not going to get that.
okay. Okay.
It doesn't translate for them. Or sometimes they don't understand sarcasm, or they don't
Got
have a
nothing to do
filter.
with a lot of
Huh?
times it has nothing to do with academically, really. It's
Yeah,
just
sometimes it has nothing to do with academics. Sometimes those kids will blow other children out the water academically. They have very high IQs.
okay.
And then you have instances where they're on the lower spectrum, where their IQ may not be there, they may not be verbal. Have you ever watched The Good Doctor?
No, I haven't. I haven't seen that.
Okay, so that's based off of a doctor who falls under the spectrum of autism. But if you watch this show, like, you see how super smart he is.
Okay.
It's another show on TV that addresses autism. Is it I want to say it's Malcolm in the Middle. No, I'm sorry, no, that's not it. Sheldon.
So I've heard of it. I ain't seen it.
Yeah, those shows like tap into autism, where you can kind of see the children who are on a higher spectrum, like, and they have no filter. Like, if they don't like your shirt, they will tell you, "Hey, your shirt's ugly." Like, and straight face. And sometimes I've also seen students where there's some sort of like an OCD or a fixation they have. Like, I had one autistic student. He loved Metro rail system.
Oh,
He
okay.
could tell you where the orange line began and where the orange line stopped.
Oh wow.
He would say, "Hey, what's your favorite color?" And you'd be like, "So my favorite color is orange." He'd be like, "Ms.Cobble, you should ride the orange line. The orange line begins here and it stops here." And I'd be like, "I
Damn.
didn't know that." He told one teacher, because the purple line's coming. He's like, "Or is it here? I don't know." He was like, "Oh, your favorite color is purple?" He was like, "The purple line is going to da da da." And I was just looking at him like, how does this man understand the whole metro system? I grew up
Right.
riding the metro, and I still, and like now, because I haven't done it in so long, I have to go back and read the map and be like, okay, wait a minute, what do I do again? This kid could walk you through the metro system. He had a fixation on the metro trains.
That's what's up. That's good. That's good that he know that. That's good.
I mean, so it's like, to work with autistic children sometimes, it's cool, because you just get to see the different personalities. But your friend, that autism and dyslexia are two different things.
Right. That's what I could. I just know people like they'll claim because he gets benefits for that. So my thing is, yeah,
If I could, okay, so I guess going back to your question with this, how do you identify? Usually, if a child is what we call special education, now actually being talented and gifted actually falls under special education.
okay.
You're literally getting a special education,
Okay, I got
an
you.
education that is different from the average or the norm, because there's something about your learning ability that requires more or that requires modification. So being tagged actually falls under being special education, but most people don't think about it like that because the kids use it or people use it to sometimes insult you.
Oh yeah,
Let's be honest.
definitely.
And it's like, and I when I hear students say it all the time, I'm on it. It's a teachable moment. Get over here. Why did you say that?
Yeah.
And then getting them to understand. So special education basically usually involves a student having some sort of learning disability that does not allow them to access the curriculum or the instruction the same way. And I don't want to use the word normal, the average student would access it. Kind of think about it like a ramp, right? A person in a wheelchair, there's a ramp and there's a door. You and I, we just gonna walk into the door, right? So the special education is supposed to provide access to the same thing that you and I can do. You and I can walk to the door. This person needs to get in the same building, but because they have a mobility disability, I can't just walk up. So what do I provide to allow me to have access, right? And that's kind of what special education is supposed to be. It allows the child to have access to the same thing that the average child would have access to, but on their level. I can't expect you to walk to the door. And then teachers also have what's called they have a strategy where it's called universal learning of design, right? Where that means basically I'm providing strategies that would mirror that of a student who may be in a special education, but I'm providing it based off my student's need. Now it's not the same thing because people tell you, oh, I do this and this and this and this, and that covers my student who needs more. Not necessarily, because their accommodations are specific to what their need is. The universal learning of design, I kind of think about that same thing with a ramp. I'm gonna use the ramp again. I kind of think about that like if I broke my leg, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not permanently unable to walk to the door, but in this moment, I need that ramp. And so that's what a universal design of learning will do for all students. We're saying, whereas the ramp for a SPED student is saying this is specifically designed for you because of your need so that you have access all the time. It's not temporary for you.
Okay.
Right? And so there are different things. Sometimes parents go to doctors and they get doctors to walk through different diagnostic tests with them to identify things. And sometimes it's things seen in the school. And what I notice a lot of times, constantly not addressing a student's, and I'm trying to use my words very wisely, constantly not addressing a student's needs at home or at school could make the situation worse. And then a child does end up needing more accommodations because they've missed so much and there's such a big gap. And it's like, how do I catch you up or get you close to being able to at least access this information at your level, but still challenging you to whatever that standard is? Because as a teacher, I still have to teach you to, if this is the standard for that grade level, I have to figure out how to get you here,
Right.
using different resources, different programs to get you there. Now, you may not get it at the same pace or even that year like the other students should have, and they don't always get it.
Right.
So my job is to kind of keep the bar here reasonably. Now, you have some students who are a little more severe and their bar can't be here, right? But you have some students who this is the bar and there's a way to get you there. And if there's a way to get you there, that's my job as a teacher. So sometimes it's a school thing where the student, we identify they're given different tests and it's like, oh, like your friend, you said they read words backwards. That's a form of, I think he was describing dyslexia, like when you mix words up or mix letters up.
So
And
him saying autism and meaning dyslexia, that's a part that could be a part of it too.
I mean, you could be dyslexic within under the autism spectrum, but the two don't have to go hand in hand because I can be dyslexic
Okay.
and not have autism.
Gotcha.
So, like I said, autism, because it's such a spectrum, you can have that label and other things go along with it, but not necessarily. I've had autistic students who were very vocal, and sometimes I'd be like, "Hey," like I had one student. He would talk so much. He was one of my verbal ones. He actually had the highest grade in my math class.
Oh, that's what's up.
He was outdoing everyone, and he would always talk. And I would have to say, the kids would be like, "Can you tell him to be quiet?" Because he would just talk and not realize he's talking.
Man.
And then so I have to say to him, "Hi, your classmates are asking you to be quiet. Like, can you and we need you to be quiet so they can think." And he was like, "I'm not talking." I'm like, and so I had to get him to understand. Like, we finally got through it. Like, yes, you are. And so sometimes I would have to move him, and I say, "You just go sit back here," because a part of his process of learning was he had to say it out loud.
Okay.
Right? Or think it through out loud. And the other kids are like, "Shut up." I'm like, "No, we're not doing that. We're not gonna do that." And I needed not to shun him for thinking like that. So sometimes I have to say, "Okay, you just go sit back here, and you can talk it out back here." So you because you're disrupting or disturbing other people
Right.
from the way that they get it. And so we made grounds.
So I have a question. So so students that have like anger management or bipolar or something like that, that still falls under where they would get special education?
Listen, I don't know what umbrella that is falling under now, because I will be honest, since we've come back from the pandemic, it's more and more students who are angry. And so if it is an actual diagnosis such as a bipolar, which bipolar, a lot of doctors don't even do that diagnosis, under the age of 8.
Okay.
Right? So it depends on where you're going. Like if there's a specific diagnosis, even that would, if it does not affect their academics, they would go under another program, where they would get a plan that says, I have this medical condition that it doesn't keep me from accessing the curriculum, but it can affect my learning. Right? So that's not an IEP, right? An individualized education plan. That's what we call a 504 plan, where there's usually some sort of medical condition that doesn't really affect your learning, as far as your ability, but it can affect your learning. So like I've had students who've had sickle cell, because they're always tired or dehydrated, or sometimes they have moments where they're aching and they have to be home.
Right.
Ability wise, they can access the curriculum. However, their condition affects their learning, because if I'm always tired, so I have to provide opportunities where I've had students that would go to sleep, and sometimes I would just let them lay their head down for like 15 minutes. You're not sleeping the whole class, because what I teach them is know your disability or your condition without making it an excuse.
Okay. Yeah.
I want you, because in life you have to strategize and figure out how to work through this. So I can't be like, "Well, I'm always," no. You go ahead and put your head down for 15 minutes. Then I need you to get up, go get some water, and we're gonna come back to it. Or I need you to finish this much of it and then come to me or take a rest. I had a narcoleptic student. I had never had a student who was narcoleptic.
How did you deal with that?
Same thing. I was grateful that mom, let me know up front, as well as it was in her folder or in her case file to let me know. And so I just had conversations with her. And what I did, I kind of like was very observant the first couple of weeks to kind of see, when is she falling asleep? What is she doing when she's falling asleep? And then just kind of like, again, I'm grateful for students who are compassionate, who've already learned compassion at home. So it's easy to have the conversation with them. And so she had a buddy, like, "Listen, when she falls asleep, I need y'all." You know how kids, when you fall asleep, they be yelling and pushing on you. We're not doing that, because I don't want to scare her.
Right.
Right. So what we're going to do is, you're going to be her partner, and I'll let you know when I need you to wake her up. Other than that, I need you to just, she would be falling asleep and I pass out paper. They would just take her paper, put her name on it. If we were writing notes, they would take the notes and they would just make sure that she got the notes later on.
That's
So
what's
I
up.
would give her a few minutes and I would say, hey, all right, I need you. You good? You okay? You need to walk around and just, keep water with her type situation. And I mean, the kids were really good with her.
You
They
got some
didn't
nice kids over there. You got some real nice ones. I'm trying. Hey,
well,
look.
in my room, I don't play those games. No, if you're not nice, keep your not nice outside my room because I better not see it.
Lord.
Yeah. But being outside the classroom, I get to see more not nice kids. But if you have a classroom culture where you are teaching children that this is a safe haven, then you'll notice that even the mean kids will start to become a little bit more compassionate because they already understand that's not happening in here. That's not happening in my presence.
I'm about to
So
say
it's
these
like
kids nowadays is they ain't got no filter, no, they relentless.
none. But you know what the wild thing is? No filter, but they are the most sensitive children ever. It's like I don't quite understand that balance. I've heard kids say wild things to children or each other and adults, and I'm just like, huh? And it's mean. But then I can go and say, hey, you're not doing your best on your work, and I'm getting a phone call like you made my child feel this way, and I'm like, whoa, I just heard your child tell somebody that their mother doesn't love them,
Oh,
and all I did was told them their work is not up to par and they could do better, and they're in here acting foolish, and I know there's better. I'm confused, or they're busting out crying when I'm saying it, and I'm saying, wait, you just told a kid they should just go jump off a bridge. Like, whoa, what? I, I'm telling you this. If I my colleagues could tell you, we've heard some wild things that children have said, but it's just like I just don't understand. How are y'all so insensitive yet sensitive?
insensitive, yes, sensitive. Wow, yeah, yeah. That's that's
And
a
they'll look at you strange when you address it. Like, what I say? And I'm like, you don't tell people to go jump off a bridge. You don't tell people their mother doesn't love them. Like,
yeah, because if that person really go jump off a bridge, that's a whole nother situation.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah, so that brings me to the next thing. Y'all have the angry kids, the bad kids, the kids that will lash out at you, the educator. How are y'all? Because I done seen some videos. I just recently saw a video of the teacher knock the kid out. Like, what's going on in school right now?
Okay, that's a loaded question, right?
Yeah, what's going on?
Listen, again, this is what I'm telling you. If you to all your listeners, your watchers, listen, if y'all can sub, go do it. It should be like jury duty. Everybody should be required to do this once in their life. Because
Shit,
listen,
like jury duty.
everybody should get picked.
Oh snap!
And I know some of the videos you're talking about. Like when you look at it on the outside perspective, you're like, oh my God, like why didn't they have restraint? That's so unprofessional. Like, why would they do that?
Oh no,
Right?
yeah, I
But
know though. I know from both sides. I can see.
listen, I'm gonna talk. Okay, I'm gonna speak on a perspective like you're of a younger generation, so you kind of saw some of your peers trying it, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm talking about folks that who are far removed from education itself, like not even in your generation, not even in my generation, but they're because they may have come from another generation where it's like children actually sat down and were quiet and worked, right?
Right.
We don't. That's not so, right? So they watch it like, oh my God, like, and then you have some people that's like, yeah, that's what should have happened, like they popped off, like it's so many it's so many opinions going on, but it's hard because what I try to explain to my students, this is the conversation I've had with, because I mostly in the last couple of years, if I haven't taught sixth grade, I work with the older children in middle school, or I work with the school as a whole. So I try to give my students this perspective. I said, these are adults most times that have children as grown as you or growner, right? And so I want you to think about it from the perspective of, if I'm a mother or a father and my child said or did that, there's certain things that would happen, right? Or would not happen because of the way I parent my child. So do you really think we are built to come to work and repeatedly have that done to us or said to us and not feel a certain way? People want teachers, they don't think we're human. Like they think we have super patience. We
Yeah.
do. But when you got 25 to 30 kids and sometimes a rotation of 25 to 30 kids for 5 to 6 periods, and in every class somebody's attacking you the same way, or you have a parent attacking you the same way, or you have society saying you're not doing enough, listen, there is a breaking point.
Mm-hmm.
And because a lot of these children don't get consequences, right? Either it's on both ends. Sometimes you'll have teachers and the parents who are saying, like, when things happen, the children are not getting enough consequences in school. Well, we can only do so much, right? There's certain rights that we don't have, right?
Right.
But then children aren't getting consequences at home. So if it's happening on both ends, kids are feeling like real superior, like I can do what I want to do. And there are no consequences. Mom and dad is not going to say anything, and the school might just suspend me. But even when they suspend me, they better have all their ducks in a row, because you have that parent that's gonna come behind and say, "Well, did you do this? Did you do that? My child said da da da." And is there a bit? It's so much.
Yeah.
So I will have to say, first of all, personally speaking, it takes a lot of prayer, because some days I'm just like, if your last name was Cobble right about now, I know what my response would be, right? And I don't mean to sound, I don't want to, I'm not saying that physical response is always the answer, but let's be real. Some of us needed to be chopped in the throat for us to get it, and then we were like, "Oh, okay, I got it." Some of us needed a physical reminder sometimes to be like, "Okay, he or she not playing with me.
Right.
Let me gather myself." Right. So I'm not talking about abusing children, but
Discipline.
I'm saying consequences. Right. Whatever that looks like in your household. Right. Um, I have kindergartners that spaz out. Kindergarten.
Little kid. That's
And the
crazy.
crazy thing is, like I said, since the pandemic, I'm seeing it more in our younger children. Just angry. Like, we have a little boy now. I'm so proud of him. Like, he's in kindergarten. He didn't speak English. He has a set of twin brothers. They speak English or whatever. And they would just be looking at him like, we don't know what's wrong. We don't know. He did not want to come to school. He had separation anxiety.
Oh, okay.
Right? So this is his first year of school, and he's probably, previous years, his brothers being at home, he wanted to be under mom type situation. When I tell you, dude came in fighting every day, and he liked to run. So I would look at him and I go, "Hey, I need you to understand I'm not in physical condition to run after you. So if you want to be angry, I need you to be angry on these steps right here. Like, be angry in this spot right here, because what I can't do is chase you.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to get far. I'm just going to put that out there. You're going to get far. Like, my knees are not set up that way to run after you." So he would be angry in his moment. Like, we literally had to escort him to class every day for almost a month with mom and dad and get him calm. So now I see him, I go, "Hey," and he gives me a hug. And so we finally got him to that place.
That's
But it was like
kindergarten?
kindergarten.
Sheesh.
I
Well,
mean, and then sometimes you have um it's things where you start to see things in students that parents don't see, and so they go, I'm gonna say, undiagnosed with things, and we just need to be really mindful of our family history, um and things that we are doing at home that may not prove to be beneficial when it's time for children to go to school, when they're in school. Then I look at my older students, having taught the middle school population, the things you hear and see that these babies have gone through. And when you get their story, you're like, okay, I'm trying to teach Common Core, and they just trying to survive.
right.
And people are telling them, hey, you can't talk about it. So that's why you see a lot of the mental health piece moving more into the school systems, and getting the parents to be comfortable with their children having conversations about what's going on inside of them. Because if I can't communicate to you what's inside of me is going to come out, sometimes violently or emotionally. Or if I'm not being given consequences for certain things, then I have the mindset I could do what I want to do, say what I want to say, and swing on teachers, and it's just like, no,
When I
you
went to
cannot.
Wise, when I went to Wise, that's when I seen that the most. Like I saw plenty of student versus staff battles, but nobody got fired. Like I didn't see any of those teachers get fired or the students even get expelled. It was just it happened and it was over.
And it's all in how it's handled, because in some cases, I mean, in some like, okay, so we had a situation in the county a couple of years ago where, did you expect that teacher to not defend?
Right.
No, it's like, we are humans too, and I have to defend myself. Do you understand that we're like, it's not, teachers are not just being threatened by students, we're being threatened by parents. I don't like what you said. Like, I'm coming up to the school. Huh?
Yeah, oh man. I didn't even think I forgot all about that.
Like,
Yeah.
I read something, it didn't happen in the state of Maryland, but I read somewhere, it was a teacher called home or talked to the parent about something, and the parent didn't like it. Whatever the consequence was, the parent wasn't in agreement with the teacher. They were on the child's side, and the child clearly was in the wrong. The parent threw a brick through the teacher's window as she was driving, and she ended up being in a car accident and dying.
Yo.
That's what I'm saying. Like, there are some schools
Sheesh.
across the country where, if you reprimand a child or correct them or try to reach out and say what's happening, the response is not, okay, let's work on it, let's talk about it. Like, it's, I'm clearly on this child's side, and I'm gonna get you. So
Is that
some
mostly,
people have to go to their cars, like, looking around.
is that mostly like dealing with the younger parents?
It's dealing with anyone who does not have the capacity to think rationally, young or old, right?
I got
And you have, parents who have certain lifestyles where they're influenced by certain things that cause them to think differently, or you have parents who are literally in trauma and don't know it, and don't, and so they only know how to respond how they know how to respond. Or you have parents who actually have a diagnosis but are not following through with those things to help them. It's so many variables. You just never know. A parent could also be responding in a traumatic. It could be a traumatic response based on something they went through in school. And so if they've ever had a teacher that they felt like, did them wrong, or, then my mindset is, when a teacher called my house, oh, it wasn't my child. It's just, we could be all day long on what it could be, and the things I could tell you, the things I've experienced. I have nasty emails to prove it. I have, like, I have nasty notes that were sent to me. I've had fathers say, well, I'm on my way, and I'm like, okay, now I'm different. And I'm just like, okay, what does that mean? Like, I'm not really sure
the
how you want me to respond
father.
right now.
The father threatened you.
I've had a father. I wasn't in the classroom, but, you know, um, he asked the question. I gave the answer of what I had, and he didn't like my answer. But I also saw how he responded to his partner. And so, because I didn't respond a certain way, I guess he didn't like that even more. And so I'm like, yeah, I'm not her. Like, I need you to be respectful. Like, this is the answer that I have for you. Um, I'm sorry you don't like it, but what does it mean that you're on your way? Like, what does that mean?
That's crazy.
Like, right? So I just think a lot of times people don't look at teachers as being human, having a human response. Could we respond better sometimes? Absolutely. But just think about it. Those times when you're in the moment of something, you're going to respond how you naturally are going to respond. This child just swung, and in your mind, it went blank that
There's a
it's a
fight
child.
now. There's a fight.
You fight or flight. So sometimes, in hindsight, you're like, dang, I should have, I could have, I did. But sometimes it's in that moment. because you even have students that will sit there and watch things escalate. And instead of them having enough sense to say, hey, let me go get another adult, they just pull out their phone.
Oh, yeah. I was getting to that. I was ready to get to the phones. I was getting ready to get to the phones.
Those phones are, they something else.
But I watched a video on TikTok. The parent went to I guess the teacher took the phone home and they used the location to figure out where the phone was at. So they went to the teacher house to try to get the phone. And the teacher wasn't giving the parent the phone. Like, you'll get it at the school. Like,
But see, now, in that situation, both was extreme. Like, okay, if the child should have had the phone taken, we are told, take that phone to the administrator.
not home.
Not home. Now, I don't know the situation. A teacher could have accidentally taken it home, right?
Right.
However, you as a parent, like, what is on that phone that you can't survive for the next 24 hours that you had to go to somebody, you had to go to somebody's house. Now, realize, let's think about, now in our homes, we have certain rights to do certain things.
Oh,
If
yeah.
you come on my property, right? So now you're stepping across that.
Yeah, ain't at the
Because
school
in that
no
moment,
more.
I'm not Miss Such and Such.
Yeah.
I'm not Mr. Such and Such. Like, you're on my property, right? So that could have gone another way,
Yep.
right? And same thing with, like, really, come on, mom, dad, what was on that phone that you really needed to go to that adult's house? You, seriously.
So,
But that's one of the things that is in place. Like, if we take a child's phone, we are to give it to the administrator and have the parent pick it up from the office. And usually it's locked up in the vault or the administrator locks it up, that type of situation. But listen, these parents will go off. You take that child's phone, they go off.
yeah, because they feel like they paid so much money for it or whatever.
Listen, and I get it. I get it. No judgment. That's your money. Got it. But it's like, what are you teaching your child? Because even if I called in that moment and said, come get the phone, you won't tell me I ain't come, not, like, it becomes that. And the phone policy, like, I get it. People, like, you were in school during 9/11. That's people's now rationale. Well, when 9/11 happened, I need to make sure my child is safe. They have a way to communicate. 9/11, none of us were able to communicate.
Man, you know what? Yeah. I was in your
So
class 9/11.
help me understand. Like, all of our cell phone towers were affected. Like, we were trying to make calls and they were being dropped.
Oh, see, I didn't even know that. I was a little kid. I had no clue about
Yes, people in our school were trying to make phone calls to loved ones, and a lot of us were able to get through. So I need people to understand that, right? And what happened? I remember coming home from school. I didn't have a phone. When I got home, I called and said, "Hey, we home."
Right.
I got in trouble with the teacher. Teacher called home. It wasn't, or I got in trouble with the teacher, and I really didn't. I was a good kid. I didn't get in trouble too much,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
I'm a pretty good kid. So let's say, the teacher, reprimands me for something, right? Listen, we reprimand these kids for something. The parent is calling within 5 to 10 minutes. Like, my child just texted me and said that I'm sorry. The phone is supposed to be off. How did they text you? I've had kids to say, hey, can I go to the
Ooh,
bathroom?
snap.
And they go in the bathroom and they call, like, and then I'm getting a phone call or a nasty email. And I'm like, what? Because if my child calls on a cell phone, the first thing I'm going to say, hey, are you safe? And if they say I'm safe, I'm going to be like, why are you on this phone?
Right.
Like, I mean, those
That's
phones, I get it. They can be a blessing, but they can also be a curse. Like, we've had parents to text children about family members who have failing health or have passed away. And you look
damn.
back,
The
I
middle
was in your class,
class?
they in class crying hysterically.
Yeah, because damn.
And you are so confused about what just happened. Or I've had kids, you looking and they under the desk and I'm like, what are you doing? Oh, that's my mom texting me. Why is your mom texting you? What is going I'm like, oh. And so just getting parents to be in one accord with us. Now, high school, it's unfortunate because some children and parents can handle that, right? But the unfortunate piece is that more of them cannot handle it. And so that's why we end up having the rules in play. Because you have some parents like, well, listen, I need to communicate and let my child know I'm picking them up from school today and they're not riding the bus, right?
Right.
That makes sense. But can you just call the school? Can you, or my child stays after school, so I need to know, got it. It's always another side to it, but when you're looking at it from our perspective, it's very confusing because you don't even know the child went in the bathroom and called the parent and then left out half the story that you just cussed me out in the process.
I remember, man. I didn't even realize, like, when I had my phone in school, that was so smartphones ain't come out until I was a freshman in high school. So we didn't even have like you could go to the bathroom and try to use your phone.
And listen, you remember you had to text after a certain time or it was gonna cost.
Yeah, like
Listen, these kids are on the internet. We've had children who've made whole Instagram videos during instructional time, or because they've gone in the bathroom. We have this thing now where children are going in the bathroom and doing fight clubs and recording it. When I tell you this phone makes my head hurt, you have children who come to school and you're doing a class change and you next thing you know it's a full out brawl. And when you get to the bottom of it, it's like, oh, on Snapchat they said, on Instagram. Why do you even have Instagram? You're not even old enough.
there is an age limit for Instagram. I don't know if people know. I think it's like maybe 15 or older. But it's
Listen, I've had children they will pull out their phone and they'll like, Ms.Cobble, this person was texting me saying X, Y, and they showed me whole feeds.
But you teach
of
elementary school.
second, I'm talking about this year.
Oh snap!
I'm not even talking about middle school. That middle school is one other thing. But elementary school, second graders have pulled out whole feeds of children cussing each other out and leaving voice messages proceeding to cuss each other out. And parents are clueless. But if I take that phone, I am now the villain.
Yeah. But on the flip side, since we were talking about COVID earlier and all the technology and all that stuff, would the phone be like? I remember, like, at least one of my arguments was why I should be able to have a phone was that I could, instead of me writing down the notes, I could just take the picture of the board and have the notes.
Well, honestly, I used to allow some of my students to do that, right? So
Uh-huh.
I had to be creative. But again, what happens with that, you always have some child that takes it to another level. And now it's just kind of like, yeah, nobody can do it. So you have a student, you're supposed to be taking a picture of the notes and you taking a picture of the teacher and then doing little features and putting it on Facebook, or well, not Facebook for them, but Instagram, Snapchat. And you got
Oh,
this whole picture of a teacher floating around or another student. You know what I'm saying? But like you said, I used to be that teacher depending on the student. I had a student, I had those students, you remember agenda books?
yeah.
No, they would only write down what they wanted to for homework because they didn't want to do
that was me.
so right. Right. So they had that parent that was looking for that agenda book when they got home, and they said, okay, you got spelling tonight, you got math tonight, but they didn't write down they had to write an essay because they didn't want to do that. And so when I'm giving the grade, the teacher's like, oh, well, they didn't write it down. And to be honest, I don't always have time to check, right? Now, some students, if it was in their plan, their IEP or their 504 plan for me to make sure that would happen, okay, I had to do it by law.
Right.
But other children, I'm holding you accountable and teaching you responsibility. You need to write it down. So for kids like that, what I would do is get over here, bring their phone, take a picture of that homework board, and watch them text it to their parent.
Oh dang! Oh, yeah. You know what? That would have messed up my whole.
Exactly, because there's always a me thinking ahead of you. But I also had students who I said, let's say they struggle with writing things down. It may not necessarily have been a disability, but it's something they struggle with. We were trying to work on. Hi, come here. Bring your phone. Take a picture of the board. Now go back to your seat and copy it. Because I needed them. You need that writing. You need to build that motor skill, right? So that was the purpose. So I did find ways to kind of I'm not going to say that the phones, like I said, they're a blessing and they're a curse. I found ways academically to use that phone, and it's worked for children. But it's that flip side. It's just like you got children recording conversations
The internet
and
in the palm of your hand.
right there.
The whole world.
I mean, Google and stuff, what it's so much. And the funny thing is they built a filter in our school system where you only can get to certain things. The kids know how to get through it.
Yeah, it's
You can
called.
go to something, they were like, yeah, you all you have to do is this. And I'm like,
Yeah.
how y'all know that?
Y'all know what them VPN? That's all you need right there.
Listen, that's what I'm saying. And this is why we on our children, because they are intelligent in ways we don't think they're intelligent.
Mm-hmm.
So it's trying to like use your good for good and not for evil. It's kind of like teaching that lesson. Like here you have this thinking power or this academic power, and you're finding all the ways to misuse it. So that phone, it I just don't understand. This is like I don't understand how you sat there and recorded a whole phone when a whole fight when you could have recorded that whole lecture and passed the test. Like let's you know
Yeah.
you can tell me verbatim who swung first, why they swung, but when I say, hey, can you write a summary of the story? You're like, yeah, I don't.
Yeah. Hey, I, I'm with you. 'Cause I ain't that. I'm far off, but not that far off. When you was talking about the Fight Club, yeah, we did that. And
It's
why?
a lot of stuff parents don't know and they don't believe their children are doing. The one
You
thing I
definitely
try to
did
stress my parents,
that.
I tell my parents, please don't be that person that says not my child.
Nah, they
Because
don't.
children are going to be children and they're going to be children in front of you sometimes a certain way because you have a certain standard in your household, and they're going to be another way when they're in my presence
Yep.
because they can see other children doing it and they think, oh, well, they're getting away with it. It's like they're not really getting away with it. It's I only could go so far with it.
Right.
Or I'm only being supported so far with it. And so it looks like to other children, well, they get to do this. And it's like, yeah, if I had my way, baby, that wouldn't be so. So it's like their minds, you just never know how they're perceiving things.
Right. So, how do you think technology in the future is going to reshape the way that we educate, that we learn?
Well, the pandemic already opened up that pathway.
Right.
We had to pretty much rely on technology to educate our students. And like I already explained earlier, in some ways that motivated and allowed some children to excel because now there are a whole lot of online programs where children don't even go to a physical school anymore. Some of them choose to be homeschooled, through an online platform, and they're learning and thriving. Their parents just have to always remember to implement that social piece.
Right.
So I know a lot of parents who choose to homeschool, but they meet up with other parents who homeschool and they go out and they do activities to make sure their child has that social interaction because that's very important. Which kind of speaks to the technology, like again, a blessing and a curse, right? So technology can be great, but you still have to have that social piece. And I feel like children still need a way to revert back to another way in the event. Like we struggled today with Zoom. And
Mhm.
so you were like, okay, well, let's try this. You had to go through several things,
Right.
to figure out, okay, technology is not on my side right now. How can I backtrack or how can I go another way with this? Right. And so if we're teaching children to rely strictly on technology, what happens when that shuts down? What happens when that doesn't go right? Can I think outside of that and figure out another way around it?
Right.
Right. So that, and then you have some children who be like, I remember during COVID, children Googling everything. You ask them a question and they think they typing and they're giving answers and you're looking at them like, yeah, that is not your answer. Like you did not say that. You did not come up with that. But bless your heart for being resourceful,
Yeah.
seeking out another way. I give them praise for that. You know what? I appreciate you being resourceful, but I want you to use your mind, your brain, and I want you to tell me what you think that means or what that looks like.
I'm
Right?
guilty of that too. I remember I think it was my senior year. I had some type of test. I sat there and Googled every single answer. I got.
And that's what I'm saying. That was happening during the pandemic too. Some children were thriving because Google was on their side.
And I was in class. I was in the school. Google. I'm like, man, I don't know. I'm about to Google everything.
Um, and then the thing is, it's like in some cases, yes, that's helpful, right? But what is it teaching you? What's sticking with you as a result? Like, even if you're Googling it, at least like attend to it where you lock it in, right?
Hmm.
But some kids, I'm just gonna Google it and they don't connect nothing. It's out of sight, out of mind.
And then one thing I figured out was those workbooks.
Uh-huh.
Teachers, you give worksheets out of the workbook, and you can find the whole workbook on Google.
Whole thing online.
Yeah.
Or they had little sites where you could type in the question and it
Hmm.
would give you the answer.
Yeah.
And but I used to tell my students, as I grew in teaching, guys, I need you to realize that all these math books, like all these problems are the same. No matter what publishing brand I pick, they've taken the same problems and just formatted different, made a different page, made it cutesy, did a different example. But if you look at it, these problems are the same. So I'm not sitting here and going to tell you like, you can't ever find these anywhere. They're everywhere.
Yeah.
Right. So, like you said, most of this, and that's the thing, that's what I couldn't understand either during the pandemic. How you not passing when everything you can Google everything? It got to the point when I would give tests during the pandemic, like I got tired of fighting, like, no notes. How do I know? You're at home. I don't know if you're using notes or not. I don't know if you're Googling or not. We had parents
Yeah, you
taking
can't stop
doing the
people.
kids' work.
Yeah.
What'd you say?
Well, so you can't stop people from doing whatever they
Yes,
want to do.
exactly. So I used to just tell the kids, listen, I don't care if you use notes, because I would give notes in class and display them electronically and allow them to get them through there. We were using Google Classroom at the time. I can't fight that battle because I'm not there.
And the only way
I
to
can't
fight that
control it.
battle is to come up with something totally original.
That's what I said. Listen, I want you to use your notes. Guys, I need you to use those notes. And then I had students who still failed. It's like, how?
Well, see, that's another
So
thing, though, because, like I said, they will be present but not present. The computer will be on, and they over here.
I've had kids playing full-fledged video games.
Yeah.
Because the whole time they're talking, they're like this. And I'm like, your camera's on, you know that I can see you playing the video game, right?
Uh-huh.
Or there have been times I've called home while I'm on Zoom and they hear that phone ring. Hi, could you go into Brandon's room? He's playing a video game and he's supposed to be in math class right now. Like,
Oh, snap.
I've had to do that.
Dang.
I've had to do that. Like, so the technology, I know there's a big push in AI now, right? And so now it's like every time technology becomes more improved and it's supposed to help, right? Teachers and educators have to figure out the opposite, if you will.
Yeah, because you can write a whole
How do I combat what technology is doing? Because now these kids are going on AI and they're writing whole papers.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so
Patrick
you see that a
word
lot.
count and everything.
You just tell AI, write me a paper on whatever, and so now teachers and the education field has to figure out programs that will be able to identify that that's happening.
I said they got the detectors, the artificial intelligence. I don't even know how it
Right.
works, but
So that, I mean, think about that. And I remember, I mean, being in grad school when I was working on my doctorate, we would have to send our papers through a system that would scan if it was plagiarized. So now we're past just plagiarism. You just copying something you saw online, or now you're getting an actual computer, a robot to just write it
but
for you.
yep, it ain't plagiarized no more. So it's yeah.
So it's like now, do I call that plagiarism? Because you really didn't steal anyone's words. I
Yep. And then they
don't
have
even know
a
what to call
difference.
that.
There's a difference between AI generated and AI assisted. So
So you give me,
AI generated is if you type something in, like you give the AI a prompt and it comes up with something. But
got it.
if I write a paper and I put my paper that I wrote into the AI and say, make it better.
That's different.
That's AI assisted.
Okay. Yeah. I don't think anybody's assisting anymore. I think children are just going for a straight generate. Like, just go ahead and do that for me. Because they always say, "Why I got to do that?"
Yeah. It's coming to a point of laziness, and there's always see. I remember a time without it. They don't. They've always like they were born with it.
I mean, the laziness you talked about. I hear one of my students this past week. I do an after school program to help them with their math, and she was just like, "Yeah, I know the math. I'm just lazy. I just rather use a calculator." And then she was like, "Yeah, I know I'm not going to get a husband that way." And I'm like, "What? I'm sorry. What? How do we connect the two of those? Like."
Yeah, she said, "I'm gonna get enough just to pass, and that's good
Yeah, and
enough."
that's what and I said, well, how much sense does that make to you? Because you are very intelligent. So I said, you do realize the calculator that you want to go to is programmed by man, right? It had to be given a program to be told what to do that was based off something a human did.
Right.
So why not just go ahead and use that thing called a brain if you want the calculator to assist you, but that should not be your go-to if you're telling me you have the information. So it's just like a lot of the kids say things like that out their mouth. So with technology moving forward, I want it to be used in a way where it's going to assist,
Right.
if you will, but not where students become dependent on it and don't want to think. Because in school we have to teach them critical thinking skills, problem solving. So when you get into the real world, how do I navigate through this situation? Am I going to Google it every time?
Yep.
Am I going to call on AI every time?
The kids don't even really have to write down anything anymore. I watched the video. I guess the little kid wanted to go to Chuck E. Cheese, and the parent told him like, "Yeah, Chuck E. Cheese closed." The kid went on the phone and
I
said,
saw that
"It's
one.
Chuck E. Yeah."
That's what I'm saying. And these are little kids. Like I watch my nephew. I have a 2-year-old nephew, and he'll be like, "Alexa, play Baby Shark."
Yep. You don't gotta write
And
nothing
I'm
down. You don't gotta type. You don't gotta spell. You don't gotta read.
nothing. So
All these little-
I guess just getting back to the question, I guess with technology is just we as educators just have to continue to find that balance.
do you
Because
do you
go
think
ahead.
technology will ever take your job? Like, will there ever be AI educators?
Um, well, hopefully I'll be retired, but I mean, I'm not going to say that that is not a possibility because it's already in the works. Like I've already seen video footage of different places that where children are using AI to learn and to connect with the academic. Um, but here's what I also saw. There still were adults in the room to guide,
Oh, okay.
to make sure they were where they needed to be,
Right.
right? So in a sense of, will AI possibly be used to communicate things with my students that normally someone in person would do? Yeah, that might happen. But there's also going to need to be someone present. Because what if something malfunctions? What if the child doesn't know how to navigate to the next thing?
Right.
Like, there's always going to have to be someone present to do that. Now, I don't mind AI giving me a break. I'm okay with that. AI can give me a break. But again, I think it goes back to that social interaction. Because the more you have children to just interact only with technology, it takes away something from them. They can't relate to people. They become extremely awkward when they're in a social setting. They have no filter. They don't know what to talk about, what's okay, what's appropriate. They have a hard time regulating their emotions. They don't learn social cues. So I feel like that social piece is always going to be important. As much as we're pushing AI, I think it's going to backfire. And people are going to realize that it is not the answer. Like you said, I love how you said the assist versus generate. Like I think it's a great assist, but it's not the answer. And then I mean, I think about that movie. What was it? I, Robot. Was it? Yeah, eventually y'all wanted to start killing these jokers off because
Nah,
they
look,
was taking over and pretty much thinking they were smarter than you. Like sometimes I get mad at my phone or my computer and stuff because I'm trying to like tell it to do stuff and it's telling me like you need to do this or this and I'm like, no, you're not listening. Like when you talk to Siri and you're like Siri, da da da, like
yeah.
no, Siri, that's not even what I said. That's you don't even know Siri.
Yeah.
You're trying to tell me something and I'm trying to tell you something. So I feel like that battle is going to come, and we're going to realize that maybe this technology, this AI, is doing too much,
Right. Way too. We giving it too much power.
too much power. So it should
Self-driving
like your word.
cars. They driving cars, planes,
Yeah,
AI
no, thank you.
customer
I
service.
listen. There are days when I don't want to drive home, but I'm not okay with my car driving me home
Yeah, nah, I don't think I could do
because there's always something like your car isn't able to detect. Like my car has the feature where like if you get too close to a car or
that.
like you're not a car length away and you put on brakes, the little light comes on to
Uh-huh.
let you know like hey you're about to hit someone or you're close or whatever. And it's like sometimes it comes on. I'm like there's no one in front of me.
Look, I had a car that will put the brakes on for you.
Yeah. And so that stuff, while it's helpful, it also backfires when that technology piece cannot identify what's really going on.
Right.
So the car might be telling you, hey, put on brakes, but really, I don't need to put on brakes. What I need to do is quickly switch lanes
Uh-huh.
to avoid it. And now I'm hurt because the car thought it was smarter than me.
Yep. Yep.
So I just feel like at some point we're going to realize that AI is not the answer. It should have been the assist, and it's going to backfire. And we're going to start not using it as much.
Yeah, because the laws, the reason I brought up the assistant and the generator is because they're making laws around it now. Because, like you said, somebody could just make a paper with the AI. Who does that belong to? The AI or the person that asked for the paper?
That part. So do you see how when we create new things, we've got to create new interpretations?
Yep.
Because before, we understood what plagiarism it was or is. So now with AI, it's like you said, well, who does that paper belong to? What source do I cite?
Because the
Like,
people who programmed the AI claim that as their property because it came from their robot.
exactly. So now you got new interpretations.
Yeah, that's what they came up with assisted and generated. 'Cause I just heard that recently,
Wow.
and that's because I was looking into because the AI is writing books on Amazon. Like a lot of the books that's for sale on Amazon is AI. The author is a robot, but
I've
somebody
seen
put
that.
in the information and it created a book. So they was like, so how can you can't so now you cannot copyright those books. If an AI wrote it, you cannot copyright it. You can
Wow.
sell it, you can put it up there, but it's not exclusive. You can't get no copyright trademark for it.
See, that makes sense. And I've seen the people do a lot of TikTok videos about that. Hey, you want to write a book? Like, just go to AI and say
Hmm.
that. I've seen that.
Yeah, you can do it, and you ain't going. You might make some money too. Like I see people that make millions of dollars, but they probably got it early in the game.
Right.
Like
Now
now,
everybody's exposed.
yep.
Yeah. Uh,
So this is the last question, and it's an easy question. What are the most important things that you want to see happen as far as educational, as far as the parents, and as far as the students go? Three-part question.
all right. So what is it? Repeat the question for me. So make sure I got it.
What improvements or changes do you want to see among those three, and even education as a whole?
Mm, mm. Dang, that's a loaded question for the amount of time we about to. Mm. Whew. It's so much. The first thing that pops in my mind when I think about education, and how it's changed so much, I feel like there's a lot being put on the schools in terms of what our responsibilities are, right? So initially you go into education, you think, hey, I'm sitting in front of children. I am disseminating information, in the curriculum. that is supposed to lead them to be a citizen, lead them to a career, whatever, or the workforce. I feel like so much in society is filtrating into the schools. Like, I'm having to, teach the social emotional. I'm having to address that. We're also, as a school system, we're addressing children being fed, children being clothed. Like, if you look back in history, that wasn't always the case.
Right.
And so all of that stuff is like trickling down into the school system. So it becomes very hard to teach because I'm trying to address a student who's worried about hunger, who's worried about when I get home, am I going to eat? And so now as a school, because we see that is a issue, we bring it to the school and say, okay, we're going to do a free breakfast program. Okay, we're going to do a program where children can take home snacks over the weekend. Like, my school does a program where they get produce every 2 weeks. I'm talking about cabbage, mangoes, onions, carrots.
The good stuff. All right.
The good, like the stuff that parents can literally take home and make a meal.
Okay, that's what's up.
Right? So you have those different things going on. It's just so much, and I just feel like there's so many things going on. It definitely is a struggle and a challenge to teach while maintaining your own mental health and your own physical health. We have teachers dropping dead on the job. I've had colleagues who've had strokes at work. Colleagues in the system who've passed away. I don't know if you heard, it was a teacher maybe a year or two ago, like, staying after school to do sub plans to address her physical health the next day with her doctor, only to pass away in the classroom at night. I mean, students were gone, but you're staying behind to prep for students and you're gone. I've had colleagues who've had to walk away from the profession, during the time when they were with child because of the effect that it was having on their health and their child. So it's just, I don't even know how to remedy what I want education to look like, because I feel like there's so many variables and there could be so many arguments for or against what I'm saying. But it's just, I think if we get back to home and school being a true partnership, right? So if we can learn to agree, at least for the sake of the child. Like, you may not agree how I approach something with your child, right? But parents get so focused on, well, you said this and you did that, but never focus on that. Do you identify that what the child did was not appropriate? Can we agree there? And then you and I have a conversation about how you would like me to approach that, or how you felt I should have approached that, right? But instead, they don't focus, and this is not all parents, because I can name some amazing parents right now off the top of my head. And matter of fact, I still have communication with them to this day. Okay. And those parents and I have had situations where they didn't agree with something, that the way I handled something, but we had a conversation. Okay, you're right. And then those days I was early in my career, and so I was still learning things. And so I had to be open-minded to say, okay, let me think about it from their perspective. Because in the moment, like, this is how I felt I should have handled it. And then when I listened to them, okay, maybe you're right. Maybe, the next time I'll do it this way. And, thank you for not cussing me out and calling me all kinds of names, or talking about you gonna come up to the school and fight me. But thank you for having a conversation with me. And so in those situations, I've been able to continue to teach that child with nothing in the back of my head. Like, oh, I can't say this. I got to walk on eggshells because that becomes an issue. Like, when children see that they can play you just like they play mom and dad, whether mom and dad are together or not. If I go tell dad this, he gonna buy it. Right. Or if I go tell mom this, she gonna fuss at dad and tell him. They play the home and school the same way. So I think the first thing home and school have to be able to do is come to a true partnership to be able to identify what's going on with the child and how we're going to handle it. And then if we disagree, let's not disagree in front of the child, because children come back and tell you what the parent said. My mother said she don't like you anyway. It's like, okay, wow. Like, okay. Or, like, I've had a parent call me a demon. Like,
damn, what you do to her?
and the funny thing is that the parent was a whole pastor.
Oh my God.
But the crazy part is the child did not go home and communicate what really happened. And the child was not doing well in my class. And I was in constant communication, like, hey, they're not doing, like, they sit right in front of me and I'm sitting by them purposely and encouraging them. And the funny thing is, I really like the child personality wise. I did not enjoy teaching them because it was always button heads, like trying to get them to do stuff. But I really like the child. Child was funny as I don't know what. Like, some days I would have to keep a straight face and be like, just go over there. Because what they said was legit funny. But I had to be the teacher and be like, yeah, I'm not gonna laugh in front of you because you think you're gonna keep doing that, right? But I really did enjoy the child personality wise, and I could see that once that child decided to get themselves together in life, that they were gonna be okay. But they just would do wild, crazy stuff. And so they did something wild and crazy in class, and I addressed it. And they went home and said I made them feel bad. Now, meanwhile, they drew my attention and the attention of their classmates in, not me. They raised their hand and brought it on. And so first I'm encouraging, like, oh, okay. And then they flipped on me and I'm like, so I'm responding. So they went home and said I made them feel bad. I'm sorry, what? So I got called a demon. And I just, so stuff like that. So I would have appreciated the parent coming to me and saying, hey, what took place? And not saying that in front of a child, because I could have said their child was being a demon, but they were being a kid. So if we could just do that, because like I said, and I see it more and more nowadays, children, they can call home or text or get home and say, hey, mom, dad, auntie, whoever they're living with, this happened. And folks are showing up. And the first question is not, hey, can you walk me through what happened? It's, my child said that you, and it's like, huh? And you're like, no, this is what happened. Well, they said that. And I'm like, I think it's important to listen to the child. I want your child to feel heard.
Right.
But I want you to also watch how you interact with the other adult, because I have to work with this child every day.
Mm-hmm.
And so if the child already sees that you feel a certain way about me, or you want to say nasty things about me, or disagree with me all the time, that child loses respect for my authority.
Yeah.
Because it's like, well, I'm just going to tell my mom, because I know my mom or my dad or my auntie or my grandma is going to respond this way. So we definitely have to get on that. And then if parents would address what their biases are of teachers and what their traumas are of school. Like I had parents that always say, oh, I was dumb in math, so my kid's dumb in math. No, we're not speaking that over children. You can say, I struggled with math and I know that I cannot assist my child. Can you give me strategies or resources to assist them? Because I know that was my struggle. Say that. Mm-hmm. Right? Something else that you said, students. I just, accountability. We've got to teach our children accountability, because a lot of them have none.
Even the little kids?
Huh?
Even the little kids? The younger kids, they need accountability?
You can teach them accountability, right? The consequence of their accountability may not be the same because they don't quite understand it.
Right.
But like, even I watched my colleague deal with 2 kindergartners yesterday. And the conversation was, what did you do? I did this.
Okay.
And say to the other kindergartner, what did you do? And they said, I did this. So that's teaching them accountability. This is what I did. And then we have a conversation about what should have happened, why that wasn't nice, and what was a better idea, or what was a better way to solve that issue. That's starting to build them. Now, like I said, I might not punish. I won't say use punish. I might not give them a consequence that I would give that of a sixth grader who clearly knew you dead wrong, and because you knew you were dead wrong when you did it, this is the consequence.
Mm-hmm.
But we even teach our kindergartners consequences. Okay, you're going to lose 5 minutes of your recess because this was your choice. Now, the next time you're going to do this, or you don't get to participate in this activity.
You're taking me back now.
Listen, how nowadays we can't take. You know, I used to take that recess. Oh, you wanted to play. You wanted to play. You wanted to go outside and play, and then come in here without my homework. You going listen? I allowed you your time, and you came in here on my time and wasn't ready. Oh, you're gonna do that. You're gonna do that at recess time. Nowadays we cannot do that.
For real?
They don't let us take these children to recess.
Damn, what was that rule when I was in school?
You didn't need it. You didn't need it.
I needed
That's
that.
what I'm saying. But that goes back to no consequences. The kids are down like, yeah, mom and dad didn't make me do the homework. And when I get to school, the teacher knows I didn't do it, but she can't take my recess. So I still get to play.
Man, what made them say no that you can't take the what happened?
I think it was a multiple things, and I can't speak, and I don't know because I didn't make the final decision, but it definitely would have been my thing. But I think some teachers did overuse it. Like, the goal is not always to punish, right? It's to teach. You got to teach children balance, accountability, and consequences, because that's life. That's why they get out here and they do stuff when they're a certain age, and they're surprised that the law's like, yeah, we're gonna lock you up. They're like, wait, hold on, what? In school, they just tapped my head and or nothing happened.
Yeah.
So you got to teach them consequences on levels, so that when they get out into the world, they realize that I can't do what I want to do when I want to do it. Like kids say all the time, oh, you're an adult. Yeah, but I still can't do what I want to do. And to a certain extent, because there are laws that tell me I cannot. So I think with that, maybe some teachers maybe overused it and kept taking recess from the children. And there are situations where children cannot help why they did not do something. Maybe they didn't have the supplies. Maybe they did not have the support. So you have to look at it, in all ways. And then some children don't get physical activity when they get home, because then you also have to check into that health piece. Our children were getting more, larger, and inactive. So giving them opportunity to have that experience to be active. So it's just so many things that played into why they kind of took that away as like, hey, stop making that a punishment when children don't do homework. So we have to be creative.
That's what's up.
You have to be creative, yeah. Oh, so what was the other one? You said students, parents. Yeah, I think if we are all on the same team and everybody realizes there's a part, like a lot of times parents don't hold children for being a part of the team. It's always, oh, my child said, or they didn't do it. It's like, yeah, I need you to understand, and I need your child to understand that they are on this team. And here's the thing, like I tell students, I'm a part of the team in the sense that I give the information, I give the support, right? Your parents do the same thing, but it's your game, if you will. Like, you've got to decide if you're going to win or lose. I can't determine that.
Okay.
I can give you my experience. I can give you my information. I can give you strategies, and I can say, hi, this is how we're going to win. This is the strategy we're going to use to kind of get you whatever your goal is, right? But if you decide your head is not in the game and you're going to half do it or not do it or have excuses all the time, you determine the game. That's if I'm being a good coach, right? Because sometimes we know, like, even in the real sense of sports, sometimes they fire the coach because you're not coaching right.
Right.
And then sometimes it's, yeah, I'm coaching, but y'all not playing. Or sometimes I'm not looking at my opponent, because a lot of times we're looking at it in a selfish way. We only think about it like in our eyes. We don't think about what's happening around us. So you have children who sometimes will do really well in one setting, and they get in another setting, and they realize there are people who are actually even smarter than them, and their mind is blown because you weren't thinking outside of yourself. you weren't thinking that there's somebody always going to be bigger and better.
Right.
And so you always have to keep it in you to want to do better and not just become stagnant in where you are. So I just think that if it's almost like a triangle, homeschool and student, with the child being at the forefront. So we as parents and students have to instill in our children, like, listen, this is for you. We are here to support. We are here to guide. We're here to strategize. If you fall, we're here to help you get back up. But at the end of the day, this is going to fall on you. And so what are you doing to contribute? Because children, sometimes they just think, yeah, I'm a child. I should be able to do what I want to do. Like, I should never get in trouble. Like, if we really let children be children, I wish I could show you some of the things that some of the students wrote about. It was for Black History Month. Like, they went off the I think the prompt was something like, I have a dream something.
Right.
They were like, I have a dream that I could do what I want to do and just wake up smart. And like, I was just like, wow.
I think everybody got that dream.
Right. And I'm just like, so really we need to have conversations with our children, because they really think like you wake up this smart person, or they're like, school is dumb. Why do we need school? And I always tell children, whether you choose college or you choose to be an entrepreneur or you choose to go in the work field, there's always going to be some form of education that you have to get.
Mm-hmm.
People they're like, oh, I'm gonna be a YouTuber. Cool. I don't knock that. But realize those people had to learn in some form or fashion to be at the top of their game.
Yes, definitely.
Those people who are entrepreneurs, they're like, oh, they never went to school. Yeah, not formally, maybe. They didn't formally go to a college, or they didn't formally, get education in the same way that we're used to. But they were educated in some form of fashion, either through trial and error.
Yep.
I failed. Now I got to go back and I got to replan. I have to go look at my competition. So they had to be educated in some form of fashion. I just need us to stop looking at school and educators as the enemy, and vice versa. We looking at the parent as the enemy. Like, sometimes I have to realize that my parents are doing the best they can with what they know and what they've experienced, and try to help them open their mind. And the same thing, sometimes they have to educate me on things, especially if it's a cultural thing. Maybe I don't understand in their culture this happens.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you my experiences. Why I wasn't too fond of school. It wasn't really because the teachers did anything or my mother did anything. It was more so. Well, I guess it was my mother and my father. So before school started, like before when I was a little kid, I would always get instilled about school. They would drill it into my head: school, 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 school. Then when school did start, it was like, you better do this or else. And I'm like,
Correct.
well, damn.
Right. And you're right. Like, that too, the pressure, there should be a certain pressure, if you will, on children to, like, go to school and do what you're supposed to do, but not to the point where they don't see any other way, or they're so pressured. Like, you have children, I've had children melt down because they didn't get an A,
Mm-hmm.
or they got a problem wrong. And it's like, whoa, pause, calm, like, let's talk through it. Let's talk about why you did it wrong. Like, and they're just like, I can't take anything less than an A home. And I'm like,
Yeah, because they get scolded.
and so just as parents, like, but that's a part of, just like we as teachers have to be professionally development. I wish there was almost something where parents were parentally developed, because again, you parent based off your own experience and what you think works and what you know.
Right.
But when that child comes along, that child is not necessarily just like you or just like their sibling, right? You have to, it's almost like in school, where how we have to sometimes treat our students as a whole, but also as individuals.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this child's not going to get it that way, so let me pull this group of students over here because they get it this way, and let me pull this group over here because they get it this way, and then this group over here. You got to do the same thing with your kids. You can't compare and be like, oh, well, your sister's getting A's and B's, what's wrong with you? And it's like,
Yeah.
I could be over here struggling like with dyslexia, and you don't know, because all you're saying is, why can't you read? I'm reading with you. That becomes frustrating for children. And so sometimes as parents, we have to take a 10-9-8 and say, how do I best reach my child? What are their personality traits that I think I could use to get to them? Like, if my child is shy, withdrawn, and doesn't speak a whole lot, I don't have to holler at them. Whereas my hard-headed one over here, if I don't holler, they won't do. Right? So some kids you have to learn your children, but that's I like that you brought that up because that's even with behavior.
Mm-hmm.
I've had to help physically put children on a school bus in the afternoon because they did not get green. You remember that behavioral chart?
Oh yeah.
Listen, those babies have full down meltdowns and be like, I don't want to go home. And
Right.
I'm
Stay
like,
in
I
school.
want to go home. I need you to get on this bus because what I don't want to have to do is call your parent and say, you're now on all the colors mixed together. Like you have surpassed green for the rest of the school year the way you're acting right now. Like you're never going to get a green today if we base it on today. But like, and I also have to say to our teachers, like, let's rethink that system because we have a couple of students in the last couple of years I work with. The teacher separates the day. You're gonna do an AM, you're gonna do a PM. So your color might change in the AM, but you might redeem yourself in the afternoon, and you're able to speak to the parent from both perspectives. And then, with as a teacher and a parent, trying to identify what are those triggers. When are they acting like that? Like we have some children every Monday they act like that because it's been a weekend and they're not trying to come back to school.
Uh-huh.
So Monday we already know. Yep, it's Monday. Get ready because such and such gonna act this way. Or you have some children who are in split households.
Yeah.
Okay, it's Wednesday. They're coming from such and such house, and their rules are different in households. They're trying to adjust to the rules from this household, their other household, and the rules in school. So that sometimes as parents, even though we or they mean well to say, I need you to go to school and you better da 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 da. What they're saying is, I want you to go and act like you have some sense, represent my household well, and do your absolute best, right? That's what they're saying. But sometimes it doesn't come across that. Like, if you don't, I'm going to. And all as a child, you hear like, oh my God, I didn't get an A. Oh my God, Miss Such and Such had to talk to me. I'm going to get this. When it could just be a conversation.
And then me, I just said I took it upon myself. I made a conscious decision to not do homework. Like when I was like, I don't know if it was in your class or maybe in the third grade. Like I literally made it. I said I'm not even gonna do it. I said I don't care how much trouble I get in. I'm not doing the homework.
Yeah. When kids get to that, you definitely shifted between fourth and fifth grade. There definitely was a shift in your work ethic. I do remember that.
Yeah,
I remember, I want to say it was like fourth grade, you were more of the A B. By fifth grade, it was B, C. You might slip down to a D, but I don't ever remember giving you E's.
I did enough.
Right. You did enough to save yourself because
Yeah.
you did not want that phone call. And your mom and I would have really good conversations about, okay, what can you do to assist him type situation. But I mean, kids go through that phase. Where either is, like if as a parent you're doing too much of something, it actually backfires. Too much discipline can backfire where they become super rebellious. Opposed to, there should be a healthy scare between you and your parent, right?
Yeah.
So it's healthy enough where if I'm in trouble and I need something, I can go to them. But also, I'm not crazy enough to cross that line because I know who I go. I know who I go home to. I know what the standards are.
All right.
So it should just be a healthy fear, just like you should have a healthy fear of God, like not afraid of him, but and if that's your belief, whatever God you serve, there should be a healthy fear, right?
Right.
So I think it should be the same thing with parenting. It should be a healthy fear where I know how far to go, but I also know that I can rely on my parents to be my advocate. So as you can see, we both as parents and teachers have a lot of learning to do about these little children, these little folks that come into this world with no manual, no nothing. And we only base it off of the ones we've already raised or starting to raise. We base it off of our own experiences or what people are telling us work, like, oh, this book says, do a timeout. Listen, timeout don't work for everybody. Timeout gives some kids more time to work on how to be worse.
Uh-huh.
And then timeout works on some kids to say, you know what, let me really reflect and realize why mom, dad, or Mr. or Miss such and such is upset with me right now.
Right.
Or why that wasn't a good decision. So You have to figure out what works for your child. So I think even, if more parenting classes were offered for parents, to be better, just like, we as teachers have to get classes to make sure that we're better and highly qualified for children.
Maybe I should do Monday through Thursday for the kids, and Friday be the teachers and the parents by themselves, just going through.
Exactly.
That's yeah.
Because you have parents crying, like they will call the school crying, saying, "I don't know how to help my child," and your heart breaks for that parent because you're just like, "Oh, dang! Like, how can I help you help them?"
Right.
So I think we all just have a lot of learning to continue to do about these little people that are sitting in front of us, whether we're raising them as the parent or whether we're teaching and educating them as the educator. We just have a lot to learn, and we just have to learn to work together and be open-minded. If 5 teachers 5 years in a row have said the same thing,
That's what
it's
it
not them.
is. That's what.
It's not them. And I say also to parents, I'm not saying to you allow the school system to, because a lot of parents don't want the label, right? I get it. You don't allow, but I do think you need to listen to what's being said, so you can determine, okay, is this the only person saying this? Do I actually see this myself? Is this something I need to look into further, opposed to saying, not my child? No, it must be something wrong with you, because it's like, no, like, listen to what I'm saying. I'm not going to let you, as a school system, always dictate that my child is this, right? Without thinking through it. But I'm also going to listen. And if I have 5 teachers sitting in front of me in a conference saying that you're doing this, you're saying this, and this is happening, then some part of that, I would hope that 5 grown people choose not to just have that much time in their life to say something's happening that's not happening. I would just hope. And if they are, let's talk about, why are they choosing to say this and do this? What's really happening? So yeah, I don't even know if I really answered the question. I just know that
You answered it. You answered it.
I don't have a remedy, but it's just so much.
It's just a lot needs to be changed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate your insight and your experiences, because I ain't gonna lie, this might be one of my most viewed episodes off the strength, because it's you. People been asking me about it. They're like, when you gonna get Ms.Cobble on? 'Cause I've been telling people. So they waiting.
Well, let me just say hello to all of those people who are waiting. I'm gonna say thank you to all my former students. Y'all, whether you were one of my top, one of my average, or one of my struggling babies, like, I've learned something from all of my students, and even my parents, whether they treated me well or did not treat me well. It has been a learning experience, and I definitely appreciate a lot of my students that I started out with, which was that whole Patuxent crew.
Okay.
I appreciate a lot of those parents. Like, your mom was one of those ones that I could, if I said, hey, Branda's not moving, like, she was, I don't want to say she was on my side, but she
She was
supported.
on your side. Trust me, she was.
But I wasn't lying. I didn't call home lying. So she needed to be on my side. But she definitely supported me. And I was like early in my career. And a lot of parents didn't always treat me well, because like, oh, she young, so she must don't know, or she don't have kids, so she doesn't know, right? Your mother never looked at me like that.
Right.
It was, hey, this is what I see, Miss Smith, like, Brandon's not doing.
Yes.
And we're meeting and we're having a conversation, right? I could just think about so many parents from those days that were just so beneficial in me being the educator that I am now. So, I don't want to name names, but I had, some of my little jokers, whoo, they tested my Jesus. And you know what? I'm thankful now, because even those ones who tested, again, I had support. I had support from their parents.
Yeah, I never gave you no real behavior problem.
No,
I
yours,
don't think
Brandon,
so.
Young Squalla, Brandon Smith, you just had your lazy moment when, like you said, you just determined to yourself what you wasn't going to do, and you
Yeah.
forgot what household you lived in. It's fine. But you never were a behavior problem,
Right.
right? But then I always saw in you, I'm like, yeah, he just being lazy. He's actually smarter than what he's showing that he is. He just straight lazy. And that was my push. I need him not to be lazy. I need him to use his given talent for good and not just sitting here. You used to just and you used to take your shoes off when you did it.
Come on, we
You
ain't
don't
got.
y'all, he used to be in my classroom chilling with his shoes off.
I was cooler. We was in there.
I think that's what blew me. I'm like, he gonna take his shoes off and not do nothing. Yeah, we calling home. We're calling home because this has got to
Oh,
stop.
snap.
You don't get to relax in your nothingness. Like, no. At least look uncomfortable not doing nothing. No, you was in there chilling.
Hey,
So
that's
yeah, but stuff like that, I can look back and I can laugh at. I can think about, oh, these different students that I had, and even when in hindsight, as I've, grown, even educationally, like my professional development, my going back to school, my experiences, thinking about like, dang, if I would have known this, I could have helped this child in a different way.
mhm.
But even being able to reflect back on that and say, oh, when this person was dealing with that, that was this. And so taking that experience and making sure moving forward, I know how to address it now. I mean, it's just so many things in my early career that I can think about that I just learned from my students or my parents, or that I'm now better at, that I now address very differently as an educator versus back then. I think I came in pretty knowledgeable. I had always worked with children, and I feel like intrinsically, it just came natural for me to do it. But there were still things that I needed to learn, that I think I've learned or are still learning to this day.
Well, I definitely know you are in fact the most memorable teacher that I've had, and that is a good thing because the stuff I remember was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun in your class.
That's good to know.
Yeah, I remember you had a whole little. I don't know if your classroom was bigger than everybody else's classroom. You had a whole separate section. I remember like a
Oh,
little.
the little walk-in area
Yeah, like with the couch and all. Yeah, I remember.
that y'all used to keep bussing when the ah, yeah, yeah. I used to draw freehand on the board. Like,
Mhm. I remember. I remember. Well, I think it might have been the first day of school. We came in, and all the girls was on this side, and all the boys was on this side.
oh my gosh, those were the days.
hmm
Those were the days. Camp Schmidt, all of that stuff. Well, not Camp Schmidt. I'm sorry, Hard Bargain Farm.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember that.
I thought, and I love that experience. When I went to Hard Bargain Farm with my classes, I think I only got to go like twice with fifth grade.
Yeah, I definitely went with you there.
I remember, yes, I remember the class that I looped with. So that class I taught 4 or 5, I definitely went to Hard Bargain Farm with them.
hmm
And I just remember being able to see you all in a whole nother light. Like that, the stuff I didn't get from you in the classroom. Like I really saw, wow, I thought this person was a leader because in class they do X, Y, and Z, but we got the Hard Bargain Farm, and this other child is commanding, like, no, do this, and they're problem solving. I'm going, wow, like they get straight C's, D's, and E's in my class, but I got to see that child in another light, and it
Got
opened
on
my
the
eyes.
field. Put them out on the field. It's out.
Yes. But experiences like that, I love that. And sometimes I wish I would have had them earlier in the school year to kind of really identify who you all were. And that particular group of students I had with you, watching you all go from fourth grade to fifth grade, I don't think I liked y'all for a minute because I didn't like the fact that y'all had changed from my precious fourth graders to now fifth graders who were talking about boys and girls and liking each other, and I really didn't appreciate that. And then some of y'all, changed with your work habits, and I didn't really like that. So for a point, I was like, I don't like them. I didn't like to see that change, but it opened my eyes as a teacher to know what is the shift between fourth and fifth grade.
hmm
I literally got to watch it firsthand with you all. And so by the end, I had a great appreciation for the classes that I looped with.
Yeah, man. Them was the good old days. Definitely. I can't. Cause yeah. Middle school was cool, but yeah, middle school I got in a lot of trouble in middle school. I ain't gonna lie.
Yeah.
I first started skipping. I skipped. That was when I skipped school and skipped class. I did all that first in middle school.
But I don't understand how y'all was skipping class.
Oh, it was so easy. And James Madison, it was so easy. Like,
Where did you? No, I had a student who did it, and I ended up teaching at Madison for a couple of years. I remember a student, she skipped, but she was in the bathroom. I was like, "That's nasty.
oh nah,
Like, why would you stay in the bathroom?" Like,
that's one way to do it if you really just don't want to go to class. But see, me, I was more so wanting to see my friend. So I would skip class on. I don't know why I'm telling you the blueprint. I don't know if they still doing it, but they would have open gym.
there's cameras.
Yeah, they would have open gym.
Oh,
And the whole, basically half the school is in the gym anyway, so I just was just another face in the gym all day though. From first
we don't have
period
open gym for no open gym.
at Wise, it was I used to go to all the lunches.
You was that kid. You was that kid.
I wanted
They
to
did
see
it again.
I wanted to see my people. I'm like, I don't got class with them, but I know they're gonna be in the third lunch. I'm gonna just wait.
Yep. And I used to tell kids like you, and when they walk across the stage, are you gonna be up there with them?
Nah,
Like, I just want to.
I was up there with them.
Well, I know you was. You. We already know you was only gonna bump your head, but for so long. And sometimes you gotta let kids go through that phase and figure it out. They you let them bump their head a couple of times, but they realize at the end of the day what the standard is, and it's not always just I'm trying to meet my parents' standard. It's rubbed off on them, and they realize I've got to do this for me. So you had enough sense.
I
You
almost
knew.
didn't make it though. My tenth grade year was the worst year. I almost stayed back there. I had to go to summer school. I was suspended half the school year. That was a bad year. Like I think I was suspended the entire third quarter.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, you was just wilding out,
Yeah, I was.
and you're here to tell about it. I'm so glad
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because I'm surprised that you're here to tell about it. Testimony.
Yeah.
I love that. But that's the type of stuff like, yeah, children, they're going to go through. And you just have to be able to, as an educator and as a parent, just kind of show them their ways. And like, if you continue this way, here's pretty much your option. And if you continue this way, this is your option. And you just have some kids who are wired that they're not going to get it until they in it.
Yeah. I feel it. I feel it. So I'm not gonna take too much more of your time. But the last question is, how did you feel about this interview? This Zoom interview, aside from the technical difficulties.
I thought this was amazing. I was like when you first like presented, I'm like, why he want to talk to me? Like I'm not the expert. I'm not doctor such and such, and I'm not in this position. Like, but I'm like, it felt good to have a student that believed that I could answer these questions
Yeah.
and address some of the topics. And the fact that you're even interested in platforms like this, right? You care about stuff outside of you, outside of, like what's your latest shoe, what car you driving, like you care about issues that affect people,
Right.
right? And so that made me proud to hear that, and see that I have, and then the fact that you have a student that you have taught now years ago, who's full-fledged grown and has found you and said, hey, you made an impact so much so that I have this platform that I want you to come on and I want you to talk to people. So kudos to you for becoming the man that you've become. Kudos to your parents for backing you in that. And just kudos to yourself for just wanting to be that person, right?
Thank you.
And then just thinking about like, I see some of your episodes online and I'm like, okay, like it feels good to know that you had a hand in watching someone grow to be this great person or this responsible person, And now you're saying like other students are like, when is that coming on? So I'm like, wait,
Yeah.
wait a minute. Like, I feel slightly famous.
Yeah, you low key, Ms.Cobble, your name ring bells. Hey, a lot of like you out of bro. I say you one of the most memorable teachers that anybody probably ever had.
That's good to hear. I'm sure in a good way. I hope not so much in a bad way. So let me send an apology out to anyone I've offended in the past, or if I messed you up a little bit. Like, I was learning, I was growing, but I hope you are great now. But that was never my intent to do that. Like, my students always tell me, you're so honest. Like, I don't want to lie to you. I'm going to tell you right now, if what you're doing does not make sense. It does not make sense.
I say
And this is why.
everybody, oh yeah, everybody who I talk to, we all love you. We might not have been that way when we had your class, but
Correct. I mean, I get that, but like, and I tell teachers that I mentor now, or just my colleagues who are struggling. I say, you have to decide if you are planting or if you're watering.
Mhm.
And sometimes some of y'all, all I did was I may have planted, and some of you who came to me, I watered, right? But my job was to contribute to the growth, right? Your job was to decide if you were going to grow, and when you grew, what you were going to grow into.
Yeah.
So to hear that I have either planted or I've watered along the way, like, that means a lot. And that's stuff like this rejuvenates me for my why. Cause I listen on a daily basis, I just be like, oh my God. Like, this is so different. Like, how soon to retirement, right? But then I get messages from students um on social media, or I have current students who come up to me and say, I really thank you so much, I really learned, or thank you for talking to me, or a parent just the other day was like, oh, you're Miss Cobble, like, my daughter is always talking about you, and I'm like looking like, wow, really?
Cause
Like,
one, you was the you. I don't know if we never let you know or whatever, but you was one of the cooler teachers. Like you didn't. So we had teachers like they teaching like that's. But you we can relate with you more. I don't know, but you was
you
we.
had the young Miss Cobble, that's why y'all had the young Miss Cobble, so I was still probably hip to certain things, and we were probably more at a relatable age where I was just trying to sometimes relate to my coworkers who were more seasoned than me, right? So
Mhm.
learning from them, and trying to be able to have conversations and understand different things. But I think, yeah, I think y'all definitely had a younger Miss Cobble. That's why I try to make sure I stay in a loop with students. Like, I'm sitting down with them at lunchtime. Like, okay, so what does this mean? What? Like, really? Like, I'm all into it. Okay, so what? Well, show me this on the phone. Like, and so they keep
Yeah.
me in the loop, and they're not afraid to tell me.
Mhm.
And so I try to make sure I'm creating that sort of space. And my students they will tell me, my middle school students, they were like, we know we know that when we do something wrong, you're gonna fuss us out. You're gonna dig all the way in. They said, but when we know that if we're in trouble, we can come to you.
That's what I was just about to say. And I know some teachers who I definitely would not have went to if I was in.
Yeah. My students already know when you come my way, I'm spitting truth first, and then we're gonna figure out how to work through it from here. Like, this does not have to be your end all and be all. Like, you can shift this, right? So I just try to continue to be that educator, and some children, they wear me out and make me question, should I continue? But
You've
I
been in
just
it for a while. You've been in it. You a veteran. Like
I'm
you
officially a veteran. Like,
OG
yeah,
in here now.
I'm a OG. Like, and I remember graduating on a Sunday and teaching by a Tuesday or Wednesday.
Oh wow, that's what's up though. That's quick.
Like in the fire, and then the class they gave me, let's be honest, at that time were one of the two worst classes in the whole building. And I say that because those classes had run through 5 and 6 teachers.
Did they dang?
So my first class um had been through like 5 or 6 teachers, and they were there was a sub when I got there,
Wow.
and we made it through, and that was I had almost 40 kids in my class, my first year teaching, a majority being boys.
Oh, that
And I'm
probably.
proud to say, one of those boys who gave me the hardest time, I ain't gonna say no names, you're gonna figure out who they are. It's 3 of them. And they used to live in the neighborhood of the school.
Oh yeah, I definitely know them because I live in the neighborhood.
Listen, I ain't gonna lie to you. When I would drive through the neighborhood and see them jokers walking to school, I'd be like, oh my God. I did not want them to come to school, right? But all of them were very intelligent, but they were just together, they were something else.
I know.
And then you had that little one. But I taught the oldest and the middle child, right? But that oldest one was in my very first class, and he was one of the ones. But I look at him now. He's a father. He plays ball overseas. He went to college. I knew he had all those things in him, but listen, in 4th grade, he was testing my Jesus, and I was like, but he'll come back and he will tell me, thank you for what you contributed.
Yeah.
So when I see stuff like that, I'm like, okay, this has been worth it. You're still making a difference. I've been invited to weddings, baby showers.
Yeah. Like when we little, I don't know so much because I don't even remember all the teachers I had in high school, but I remember protection. Like I
That was
pretty
a
much,
different space.
yeah. It's like I was young and like foundation. I don't know if
Yep.
that's what it was, foundation.
And
'Cause
you got
even
and the foundation ain't strong. You messed up for the rest of your life.
I could name all the teachers that I really and even one of these people I never had their class. So there was you, there was Miss Daniels, Miss
Mm-hmm.
T, Mr.
Uh-huh.
Powell, and Mr. Bolton.
Okay.
And Mr. Bolton, I never had his class, but I connected with him through summer camp,
Okay.
and that's how all of y'all like yeah. If I ever
We
see
still
y'all
keep
in
in touch.
trouble, y'all can hit me up. Yeah.
Especially Mr. Powell.
How he
He's
doing nowadays?
Mr. Powell is currently a principal in Richmond.
Okay.
Um Everyone else is still in the county. I just saw Mr. Bolton maybe a month ago, I think.
Okay. That's
But we all periodically kind of get together and hang out. We still talk. Miss Daniels and I are really close. So she and I actually we ended up teaching again together. She and I both were instructional lead teachers later on down the road, like once she left Patuxent.
that's what's
Um,
up.
we ended up back in the same space again. And so like I said, I almost talk to her almost every day. Um,
You were my third grade teacher. You my fourth and fifth.
yep. And Miss Tate, I talk to her periodically. Miss Tate is no longer teaching, but she is. I still talk to her from time to time. I still talk to Miss Dent, the principal.
Oh man, Miss Dent.
Miss Dent looks exactly the same.
For real?
Exact fly,
Is
still
protection
fly.
still? Is that still a school? Like I be around
Yeah.
because I'm about to say I don't know no kids that go to protection no more.
Yeah, but you remember when we had that split? Well, I think you were gone by then,
With
but
the Barack Obama
they had built
school.
Barack Obama.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
we lost a lot of Patuxent kids, and that was mostly the kids in that area, those
Right.
apartment homes. They started going to Barack Obama. So Patuxent is a smaller population now. It's kind of like the neighborhood
Hmm.
and that stretch of 301.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, I still keep in contact with a lot of the people at Patuxent because just like it was your foundation, it was my foundation. Like I basically came in there a baby.
That's what's up.
I was fresh out of college.
That's what's up.
And so a lot of those people you named groomed me.
That's cool.
Yeah.
But what year was it? I don't even remember the years. So 9/11. What 9/11 happened? 2001.
Usually, I don't even know. Was it that long ago?
Yeah, 9/11
You need
2001.
to Google that.
All right, let me Google it. I'm gonna Google. I think it's toward 2001.
No, it couldn't have been 2001 because that's when I started teaching.
9/11. Attack. September 11th, 2001.
It was?
Mm-hmm. And I was in the 4th grade.
Okay, so that was my first full year of teaching because I did start teaching in 2001, but it was January. So that would mean it was the following year, and it was my first year. Oh my God, that was my first year as a full-fledged 4th grade teacher.
Hey, I'm a part of your first year.
Yeah,
That's what's up.
and y'all made it.
Yep. We made it. Everybody, to my knowledge, everybody graduated too.
I'm trying to, that group. I keep up with a lot of students in that period of time. Yeah, I think most of them are friends with me on social media for the most part.
Yeah, you see the impact right there.
Right, I have some of them are actual teachers.
Oh yeah.
I have one student. She was actually that first class that I came in on in January. She is she's a STEM coordinator in Montgomery County.
Oh, that's what's up. I did
Yeah,
not think nobody.
but it's a teaching. That's crazy.
Yeah, I know. I haven't met any people who are actively trying to be a teacher right now.
Because the field is like we've already discussed so much tonight, and it's
Yeah.
you walk into it thinking it's going to be this, and you find out it's so many more things going on. Like I have a friend now who she was excited, like I'm gonna be a teacher, like, and it's not funny, but I chuckle because she'll be like, girl, like this is not what I thought it was gonna be. And I'm looking at her like, yeah, you see them days you see me come, I come different places, I say, and I'm sitting in the back half asleep. This sucks life out of you. Like you are literally drained because you are making so many decisions, you are addressing so many personalities,
Yeah.
you are multitasking, you're trying to get back to people, you're trying to address different abilities, you're trying to keep on top of stuff. It's a lot.
I believe
And
it.
so it's just not what people think. And some people, I've seen people who think that, oh, I went into this career, I went to school for this, but that's not quite working out, or I can't quite get a job in that. So let me try teaching. And it's like, yeah, this is not the place to mess up children. Like you're really here to make an impact. Cool, come on, join us. We need you. But if you think it's you, I can just go do this and it's easy. Because I know some people, let's be real, look at education or teachers like glorified babysitters.
Especially when we deal with the younger kids.
But it's just not that. And so if you're a person who has interest in children, truly, come on, like make sure you just have a passion for it. But if you think, hey, just because I can't get in this career, I'm just gonna go do this to kind of get paid for now, you're gonna stress your whole life out and you're gonna mess children up. And that's not fair.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you see now, and the funny thing is, like when I started teaching, the thing was teacher retention. What can we do to get teachers in? Okay, let's tell them we're going to pay off some of their tuition. Let's give them a bonus for signing on. Let's give them a stipend for having to move. Like it was different things in different districts that they would do to kind of keep you retained, right? Because we know within the first 5 years, that's when folks are like, yeah, no, that's not me. So it was even, okay, let's provide mentor teachers that are within the building that can assist them. And then eventually the program became mentor teachers that's all they do. They literally are assigned brand new teachers to the field or to the district, and they go out to those schools and do mentoring, making sure they understand the curriculum, observing them to kind of give them feedback, just anything they need. So all those things were in play, but now it's not just new teachers we're losing. Veteran teachers are like, yeah, so how long to retirement? So you're going to pay me early to leave? Yeah, I'll take that.
So y'all losing teachers and not getting new teachers. Welcome. Let's bring in the robots.
And that's what I'm saying. Because right now, it's just loaded classrooms. You just have a whole bunch of kids in one classroom. And that is hard. That's hard. You have to know what you're doing because yeah. So that's a struggle that we have in education, losing teachers. And that's not a Prince George's County public school thing. It's not a Maryland thing. It is nationwide because the value of education in America is not that of everywhere else.
Not at all.
Right? It's pretty much guaranteed.
And it's
here.
easy. It's other ways to make it without education in this country. Like it's so much. It's kids that's right now 5, 6 years old. They already up $1 million from Instagram or TikTok.
That's what I'm saying.
They ain't got to do nothing.
Right, and actually, let me put a plug in for my niece. She is one of the ambassadors for Afro Unicorn, right?
Okay.
And look that up. So Afro Unicorn, the creator is April Showers, right? And so she has a brand where she has hair products, party products, apparel, all that stuff. And now my niece just did a taping of a TV show. And now she has her own YouTube channel. I'm Forever Genesis. Check her out, Afro Unicorn. But she's doing episodes every Friday and they come on. It's like little snippets. Like this week, her episode was about being a detective.
Okay.
And the week before she did something on Roblox. And then she did an episode or a do-it-yourself Mother's Day activity that you can do using Afro Unicorn products or whatever, right? And I say all that to say, like, she's starting to get followers and people are starting to notice who she is. But I'm in the background because I'm auntie, I'm the educator. I'm making sure she still understands the educational piece.
Yeah. Yep, because I see all the kids coming up fighting. Like, I don't know if you heard of it. It's a girl named Lele.
Yes, my niece loves Lele. She wants to meet her. So Lele, if you watch this.
Her show I don't know if it got canceled or brought back, but her show, her father, Lele's father, was coming for another kid star because her and Lele had the same puffballs. And it was like, oh, you copying my daughter. Lele had these puffballs before you type of deal. And I was like, yeah, see, now you introducing.
And my sister and I were just talking about that. And it's like, that's going to happen. That happens in entertainment. You know what I'm saying? So, like, you can't get caught up in who did this first. I feel like it's a paper in some sense. Like, you should cite your sources or pay homage to those who came before you and not try to make it your own if it's not your own. But if you're the originator of it, you should also look at it as like a compliment.
Exactly.
And so it's all in how you take it. Now, if the person came off like, oh, I did this first, like ain't nobody did it before me. Okay, that's a little along the lines of being disrespectful, and you really should cite your sources, pay homage to those who paved the way. Yeah, but at the same time, it could be
in the 2024, what hasn't been done already?
This part. Like all these songs that the kids be singing, I'm like, you do know the original song went like this, right? Exactly. And they're like, what?
Yep.
What was that group that was out? Oh man, what was their name? They were like it wasn't ABC. I forgot their name. It was a boy group that was out years ago.
I mean, like, I don't know. 2010s too early.
Like it was 2009, 2010, somewhere in that area.
Singer B2K.
Was it B2K? I think it was them, and they did a song. I can't think of what song it is. I seem to be drawing a blank. They did a song, and my point to my students at that time, we just talking. They like, yeah, this not. And I said, y'all do know somebody else did that song before, right? And they're like, no. So it was a song that New Edition had done. And I'm a diehard New Edition fan. So what you're not gonna do is play my group. Like your group did not do it first. I need y'all. And so I let them listen to both. And so now they had an appreciation, like, oh wow, like. And I tell them sometimes your ideas are, influenced by something you've already seen.
Yep.
So that's what I mean by things like that. But our children, yes, parents, teachers, let's continue to help them. And let's be honest when we don't know and just seek out the information.
Definitely, definitely. And thanks again, Ms.Cobble. This has been a pleasure. This has been a major pleasure, and I appreciate it. I want to have you on again because there was some stuff I ain't talk about, but I don't want to hold you too long, so I want to have
Okay.
you on again. I'm going to try to get you and Ms. Daniels on the same time if I could, if it's possible.
I can contact her for you and let her know.
Yeah, yeah, do that, please.
Yeah, so we can do a part 2. That's fine. Cool.
That's a bet. That's a bet.
Yeah, so just hit me up and let me know when. And again, it was a pleasure. Thank you for having me on. Thank you to all your watchers for watching and listening. Shout out to my former Patuxent students and any other students from other schools I've taught at that happened to catch this episode. Thank you for making me better. I hope that I made you better. Yeah, and I apologize if you felt like I didn't, but my intent was always for you to be better. And shout out to all the parents that I've come across along the years who have helped to groom me to be a better educator and a better communicator with parents. And shout out to all my colleagues who've made me better.
Definitely. And one last thing, if you share this with your students, just keep in mind a lot of my episodes are not made for children. This episode is cool, but like I don't have some people.
Yeah, you do. You know. Hey, but again, they are people issues. They are things that are out there. And listen, knowing these kids, they probably already seen you.
Yeah. I just want to put my disclaimer out there.
I know that's right. Y'all remember my disclaimer. I am not the expert on the subject matter discussed. I am an expert on my experience with that subject matter.
Definitely. So, all right, Ms. Cobble, you have a good rest of your day.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.